Oh, I've been wanting to post this video for quite some time. Today, I'm going to walk you through quite literally everything I know about setting goals and, more importantly, achieving them and setting them so you can achieve them. This one is a video from our mindset module in our paid program, and it's a really good video. We've probably got about 7 or 8 videos in total in the mindset module, but this is one of my favorites, and this is going to change your life, and I can promise you that, and I can tell you that if you watch this properly and you actually do what the video tells you to do, this thing will completely change the trajectory of your life, and I'm really excited about that. If you don't know who I am, my name's Charlie. I built and scaled 2 companies, an agency to 7 figures and a coaching business to multi-7 figures. We are well on our way to 8 figures, and I've used what I'm going to be teaching you in this video basically to do that, to build an agency to 6 figures, then multi-6 figures and 7 figures, and then get this business to multi-7 figures. I've used this video and the stuff that I've learned, and obviously I'm now teaching in this video over and over again. So without further ado, I'm going to cut in. It's a 3-hour long sort of lecture-based slide video, but it's going to blow your mind and you're going to love it, and I'm really excited. So let's cut the clip in. Let's get started. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here, and welcome to The Nature of Aim. Today's video is going to be discussing goals. All human beings have goals, or people have had them at some point or another, but most human beings struggle to achieve their goals, and, well, they really suck in trying to actually achieve them and make them happen. Today's video is going to help you not suck, basically. Chances are, if you're a human, which if you're watching this, you definitely are, you probably have tried to set goals before and failed to achieve them. You probably, well, you may not have even set any goals, but most people don't even bother. But the problem is most people perceive goals and goal setting in a completely skewed way. And so today's video is going to show you how to set a goal and actually achieve it, right? We're not going to go through any of the bullshit like corporate way of goal setting, like the SMART targets or any of that crap. I'm going to be giving you a brand new paradigm and a way to think. And if you can absorb what I teach you in this video, setting and achieving goals will become easier than ever before. And I know that because I've used this methodology for myself, and I've developed this for myself. I haven't copied it from anywhere. So everything you see in this video will be new to you. The framework is pretty much brand new, and I'm really excited to be introducing it to you. So without further ado, let's talk about goal setting. So obviously we're going to discuss goals, and I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, Charlie, goals, come on, that's pretty basic. Is that all we're going to talk about? But if you watch this video, you'll soon realize why it's a little bit deeper than just that. So here's what we're going to cover. So we're going to start by talking about the first step to self-transcendence. And then I'm basically going to lay this video out into 6 sections. And I call these 6 the hidden 6. Number 1 is taking aim. Number 2 is time theory. Number 3 is drive vacuums. Number 4 is goal causality. Number 5 is environmental encouragement. And number 6 is personal capability. So this model, the hidden 6, is basically the theme of this video. And when you can apply it and use it, you're going to absolutely crush your goals. I promise you that, if you really come to terms with this stuff. So let's hop in. So let's talk about the first step to self-transcendence, because self-transcendence as a title for this module is obviously quite a bold statement. To transcend yourself means to completely undergo transformation to become a completely different person. And understanding the first step to that is obviously pretty important. Otherwise, well, you're not going to be sure exactly what to do. And so let's talk about it. So life without a goal is chaos. So I want you to imagine for a second that, you are this boat. And this is the metaphor I'm going to be using. As a human being, you are on a sailing boat in the middle of the sea. Take the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, whatever ocean you want to use. But you're just sort of out there sailing around. And this represents you. And the sea represents chaos, right? You have an unlimited amount of directions or destinations to choose from. But because you don't have a destination or an actual trajectory, things are just chaotic. You end up just sailing around in circles. And just imagine setting sail without intent. You could end up anywhere, right? This is what happens with most people's lives, is they set sail with no destination. So most people, they're born and they become conscious and they go through childhood. And through childhood, they pick up some, psychological problems. Most of us do in childhood. It's pretty common. And then what happens is they go through the standard education system and they go through university or whatever it might be. And then they get a job, and then well, that's it, right? They didn't really ever stop to think, like, hang on a minute, where do I actually want to go? No, instead they were just a boat in the middle of the ocean with no real decision. They just put up their sails and then just let the wind take them wherever the wind wanted to take them, right? That's how most people live. And the problem with this is that if you did this, if you actually set sail with no destination, you'd probably end up dead or somewhere random like north of Libya. And then you'd just be like, oh shit, how did I end up here? Now, this is what happens to most people, is like they get to 50 and then they have a midlife crisis because they're like, hang on, like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, this is my life. Like, this is the only one I've got. Why have I spent it without any intention? And now let's say you look at your options instead and you decide, like, you set sail and you decide you want to go to a specific island off the coast of Hawaii. Well, what happens is you can build a trajectory here. So instead of just floating through the chaos of life, right, and just ending up in fucking north of Libya, you decide that you want to go to a certain island, and this island represents order. Okay? So in life, we have order and we have chaos. And order is basically, it's very hard to articulate what order is, but it basically means like having control or having a sense of control over your life. Chaos is life itself. It's the monster under the bed, but order is your parent coming into your room and going under your bed to confirm there's nothing under there, right? We as human beings, we dance between order and chaos on a daily basis. And if your life feels chaotic and out of control, it's simply because you haven't got a goal to set yourself against. You haven't got a trajectory to put yourself on. And if you haven't got a trajectory, what that means is you haven't got a goal. Because goals, they, by their very nature, they give us something to work towards. And by having something to work towards, we're able to navigate the chaos of life. Because as human beings, and as young adults, or however old you are, depending upon your age, doesn't really matter. Humans are nothing but raw potential, right? And you've got this huge level of potential to do really anything you want within the laws of nature and physics. And the only thing that's stopping you from manifesting that potential is deciding where to channel it. Because as a human, you're chaotic. You've got all this potential. You could be anything and everything, but you can't be everything because you haven't picked anything to be, if that makes sense. And so by deciding like what the hell you actually want to achieve, you can take your efforts and your energy and the little time you have on this, spinning rock in the middle of nowhere, and you can actually decide to start doing something and building something productive. And that is what basically gives meaning to life, right? It's what you have to set off the suffering with something or another. And life is pain, it's suffering, it's difficult, as I'm sure you're probably aware. But by having goals and by having things at which we could set ourselves against in the form of seeing trajectories and being able to make tangible progress, that brings us like clarity and it brings us better mental health. And so this yellow line here represents a trajectory, which is obviously a path. And once you've got a path, you know what you're sailing towards and you're no longer worried about what the hell you're doing in life. And you end up here and you're like, yay, that's cool. So a goal is an aim. Right? It's a way for us to manifest our human potential and bend the fabrics of reality to our will and our desires. So you've got to imagine that your life is kind of like, you just got to imagine that you're a third person out and you are a sculptor, right? And in front of you is a massive, huge piece of rock, right? And just like a big square piece of rock. And your goal, like, is as the sculptor, is to look at that rock and to think and to visualize, what do I want this piece of rock to become? And then every single day you walk up to the rock and you just chip a little bit away bit by bit. And after 80 or 90 years, you can step back and you can look at your life and think, that is what I wanted to achieve. What happens with most people is they have all this potential. They've got this rock in front of them that could be turned into anything they want. But instead they just randomly, chip away at it here and then a bit up here and then a bit down here. And then before they know it, they get to like 70 or 80 years down the line and they've just got this complete mess of a rock in front of them. And by that point, at that point, it's too painful to even realize that you have the option to do it differently. So most people don't. But that's how that works, So goals set us on a trajectory to channel our potential and our energy. And before we change your mindset and begin the self-transcendence process, well, we need to decide what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, then what the hell are you doing here? Like, no amount of mindset training, no amount of like Facebook ads or Loom or sales training or anything like that will help you if you don't know what it's all for. So, because, by their nature, goals are a vehicle for self-transcendence. Like, self-transcendence requires vision of future, which is better than what we currently have. Because if you don't have a goal, then you can't transcend into it. So before we can start the training, you need to know what you want. This is because we're transcending you into the person that can easily achieve what you want. But before we can do that, we need to know what you want, of course, right? So my point there is that if you want to grow as a human being, you have to create futures for yourself and visualize futures for yourself that demand more of you than what you currently are. And the purpose of transcendence and the purpose of self-transcendence is to become the person capable of achieving what you actually want. But if you don't know what you want, then there's no point in becoming capable, and you won't know what sort of capability is required. And a goal is the snapshot of the future. It's a predicted effect of a culmination of causes that aligns with your feelings of desire and want. Without a goal, life becomes aimless. And really, you're at the mercy of the tides of the ocean that's the chaos embellishing life. And extremely successful people, they didn't stumble upon success. Right? They decided on the future they wanted for themselves, and then they got to work. And really, that's all success is. It's deciding what you want and then working to get it. The problem is that most people don't decide, or they decide on the wrong thing, or they make a decision and then give up, or, they do decide but then they don't work, or they don't understand the goal. Like, people are just really bad with goal setting, and this video is designed to help you with that problem. So you might have already decided what you want. Okay, if you're watching this, in fact, there's a chance you're already there, right? So congratulations. I don't mean like having your entire map lifed out, but you probably have some idea as to what you want to do. And you might have like a desired future situation in your head mapped out. But the problem is that it needs to be crystal clear, and also your expectations of it need to be in alignment with reality. And if it isn't crystal clear, and if your expectations aren't in alignment, then your limbic system and your unconscious mind will self-sabotage, and it will wreak havoc on any effort you make towards actually trying to achieve the goal. So let's dive in and talk about this. So we're going to boil this down to a number, because the beautiful thing about business is that it is very simple in terms of like goal setting, right? You really do just have to decide how much money you want to make in the early stages. Now, as you progress as an entrepreneur, you'll want to become like a mission-led entrepreneur, and then the goal is more like it's not as tangible as a financial form, because it revolves around the solution of a problem, and that's not as easy to measure. But right now, you probably have a number in mind, which is how much money you want your business to make. Right, and this could be monthly, it could be yearly, but you probably thought through like how much money you want to make. And if you're not sure what your desired monthly revenue for your business is, well, then just pause the video and have a think, and the number will come to you. I found that like most entrepreneurs, they have a number, right? It could be $3,000 a month, it could be $300,000 a month, right? Most people in this space have an idea in mind as to what they want to make. And if you don't, then just think, and just like a number will come to you. Don't question it. Just notice that that's your number. Like, your unconscious mind will produce this for you. It's very rare for your consciousness to actually manipulate your perspective on what you want. It's usually like you have a number, you've always wanted that number, you don't quite know why, but it's just what your brain has produced, and now it's what you've associated your future identity to become with, right? And you don't really know, but you should know. And it can be any number. There's no right or wrong answer. When thinking about your desired goal, don't consider the time frame or how you're going to achieve it, right? Just focus on the number you want to be at per month. So the first problem people have with goal setting is like they get way too sort of bogged down into the details of the goal. So I'll see this where like I'm like, what's the goal? Like, to say this to someone, it's like I'll be like, what's your goal? And then they'll be like, oh, I want to make like $20,000 a month, and I want to do it by April, and I want to have this, and to do it, it's like, man, just like you can figure that stuff out later. For now, just focus on the number, right? So anything you've got tagged on to the end of your number, just get rid of it. So write down your goal, right? But don't tag on something like, by March, or, I want to get to $50,000 a month with like a bunch of high ticket clients, like low volume. Just don't write anything on top of it. Just write down the number. So once you've written it down, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to just look at this goal for a good 10 seconds. Right? Just stop and just look at that number on the sheet of paper. It can be any number. There's no right or wrong answer. but you should have it, right? So just look at your number. You should be staring back at you now, and you should have it. Now, if you pay attention to this mindset training, the number in front of you will become your reality. What you've just written down on that sheet of paper, with enough discipline and enough attention to this program, will manifest into reality, right? And now I'm telling you that because I've seen it happen time and time again for hundreds of people at this point, not only for myself, but loads of other people, but it will only manifest if you pay attention and actually do the work, if that makes sense, okay? So we've got a lot of action items in this training, and you need to do every single one, regardless of how successful you think you already are, or how basic like the goals might feel or seem. So even if I don't care if you're making 500k a month, right, and you want to get to million, like, you have to do everything, right? It has to be laid out. So obviously setting a goal is not enough, right? This is pretty evident because, well, in case you hadn't noticed, a lot of people, they set goals and then they don't really achieve them. So it's pretty obvious because, well, how many times have you set a goal, whether in personal or business life, only to fall short, give up, or not even get started? It's probably hundreds, right? So why does this happen to you, right? This is a really important question. Why do you define a future outcome you want, start chasing it, and then give up? Why does that happen? Well, it's due to a failure to understand the nature of aim and the dynamics of your goals. So the way we solve this and the way we remedy this is through understanding the goal and the dynamics of it. And in this video, I'm going to reveal to you a mental model I've created that allows you to understand your goals and the nature of your aims in the purest form with perfect clarity. So most people struggle because they set the goal and then, well, then what? It's like, well, I'm going to send some emails? Like, there's not enough clarity, because you have to understand that a goal is an effect. And we mentioned this earlier, it's a snapshot of the future. All effects have causes. So if you want to achieve your goal, all you have to do is define the causes, the actions that you can put into motion to create the effect you want with enough time. And then you proceed to execute on those actions. Achieving a goal is just cause and effect. It's defining what you want, it's defining how to get it, and then doing it. But the problem that most people have is they set the goal and then everything's blurry. And then they don't know why they set the goal, so that's also blurry. And then they don't really know what actions to take, and then they get distracted easily because of all this. So like, what we need a fucking plan. We need like a real strong sense of clarity around why we want what we want, what exactly we want, who we need to be to achieve it, where we need to be to achieve it, how we're going to achieve it. All these things need to be understood, and that's the purpose of this video. So what I'm about to show you will make any future goal 10 times easier to achieve. And I'm going to give you a warning. If you continue and genuinely listen and act on what I tell you, your life will not be the same. And that's not some sort of like thing that I'm just chucking in here. Like, if you actually do this and you pay attention, like, shit's going to change you. And I can vouch for this because it's worked for me. So, the hidden six. Let's talk about the hidden six. This is a model that I've created. It's a series of questions, basically, that you'll be very familiar with. However, I've sort of structured them into a different light. What's interesting is that when I started recording the mindset module, I didn't even know that I was going to make this video. I didn't even have it planned. But it wasn't until I got into the goal setting part that I was like, shit, like, how does this all work? And I sort of understood it, but I'd never really articulated it. So this is obviously what I've come up with. So the hidden six is a mental model. Okay, it's a series of exercises that I've created and adapted to goal setting specifically for this module. And it's basically a series of questions that you ask about your goal. So if we want to understand the nature of something, which is obviously what we're doing in this video, the nature of aim, then we just need to know what questions to ask to figure out exactly what to do to achieve it. And so in this video, I'm going to be walking you through the first 5, and then the next video, the 6th. Okay, and the reason these questions are hidden, right, the reason it's called the hidden 6 is because no one actually thinks to even ask, right? The entire human race goes about goal setting in the wrong way, blindly wishing on their future without any critical thought or inspection. So really what I'm doing here is kind of just teaching you to think critically about your goal, which is a skill that a lot of people lack. And so the 6 questions in question revolve around the what, the why, the when, the how, the where, and the who, right? So we've all heard of like, who, what, where, when, why, how, where, like all of these W's and the one H. But I've taken this framework and I've applied it to your goals. And honestly, it's remarkably powerful once you figure it out. So here we've got number 1, what, which is taking aim. Number 2, when, which is time theory. 3, why, which is drive vacuums. 4, it's how, which is goal causality. 5 is where, and 6 is who, right? So environmental encouragement and personal capability. So number 1 is basically like, what is your goal? Number 2 is, when do you want to achieve your goal and what sort of time frame should we be using? Number 3 is, why do we want to achieve it? Number 4 is, how do we achieve it? Number 5 is, where do we achieve it? And number 6 is, who do we have to be to achieve it? Now, I don't want anyone to just jump straight to one of these things and skip the rest, because if you do that, you're in for some trouble. So don't just skip to number 4 and think, oh, I just need the cause bit, or yeah, I'm just going to go straight to the next video. Just promise you, watch them all. So the Hidden 6 helps you understand all of this stuff. And if you accurately answer all these questions, you can understand the nature of your goal. And this just means you're far better equipped to fucking make it happen. And this doesn't apply to just making money, by the way. You can use these 6 questions for any other thing as well. Like if you want to, build muscle or lose weight or rebuild your relationship with someone, any goal you've got. But we're talking about your business. So let's jump into this model. And the first one is the what, which is taking aim. So the big question is, well, what do you want? And by now you should have a number in front of you, right? You should have your goal, which represents order, which allows us to manifest potential and channel time and energy on a trajectory to produce the outcome we desire. So now let's discuss the what of the goal, right? And this is what I call goal constants and the Imperium equation. So there's 2 pieces to this puzzle. So what I'm going to do is now break down an equation for you, okay, and walk you through like what is the goal? Like you've got your number in front of you, and this is specifically for sort of like high ticket businesses selling products to niches and services. But we're going to break this down. So let's look at this from a mathematical perspective. So the equation that I'm using here is n plus p plus s to the power of t equals goal, okay? So let's break this down. So the niche is N. So N stands for the group of people that you're serving. The P stands for problem, which is the problem shared by your niche. The S stands for the solution to the problem shared by the niche. And the little star is an exponent, which means to the power of, and T is time. So this equation basically states that the niche plus the problem plus the solution times by time equals the goal. So if you want to achieve your goal, then you need to have your niche. You need to have a niche that has a problem. You need to have a solution to that problem. And then you need to give the business enough time and the market enough time to recognize that your solution can solve the problem so you can make the money, which is the goal. And this is really what it boils down to. If you want to bring this thing back to first principles and really like what the components of a goal are, you can just look at it from this perspective if you're talking about your business. And so we know that niches have problems. We know that problems are painful and require solutions. And we know that solutions can be sold to the niche to make money, which is to add value, right? And well, number 4 is that it takes time to create and sell solutions, right? We need time. Everything has to revolve around time. Time is the one variable that most people like forget about. It's like, they just seem to just skip straight over it. So once you have a niche, a problem, a solution, and enough time, you will have your goal. So for example, if you want to get to $50,000 a month, then you'd pick a niche, which could be gyms. You'd pick a problem, which could be like poor retention for gyms. And then you'd pick a solution, and the solution is just providing knowledge on how to prevent members from leaving. And then the time is, well, basically however long it takes to acquire the knowledge and learn how to sell it. Okay? So this is obviously a simplified thing because you're also going to need some business acumen and some business skills. But the core principles of your goal is the niche, the problem, the solution, and the time. And these are what we call goal constants. Okay, so pay attention here. These are first principles. They are factors required to achieve your goal that cannot be disputed or further questioned, right? I'm not just assuming you need to have these things to achieve a goal in a business. I'm assuming that, like, well, I'm not assuming anything. I'm telling you, you need to have these things, right? You must have all 4 of these to achieve your goal. And so goal constants are the what part of your goal. They are the DNA of the process required to actually create the future you want. And so I've actually got a resource for you here, which is taking aim, defining your goal constants. So I've got quite a lot of resources throughout this video. But if we want to answer the first question, which is like, what is the goal? Well, we can answer that in simple form by saying the goal is to make, $100,000 a month. But then we need to realize like, well, what actually is the business that creates that and makes that happen? Like, what are the core founding principles of that? So I've got taking aim here. And if I just minimize this is the first resource, okay? So defining your goal constants. So to achieve your goal, you must learn and abide by the Imperium equation. This is the knowledge that niche, solution, and problem times by time equals goal. The 4 items before the equal in this equation are the goal constants required to achieve the goal, and this resource is defined to help you get nice and clear on your goal constants. So there's obviously going to be millions of equations, right? You can have, there's fucking thousands of niches probably. There's like, if not hundreds of thousands of problems shared by those thousands of people, and there's many ways to solve those individual problems. So there are no right or wrong answers here. There's millions of different paths you can take towards getting to your goal, right? So the main things are just, number 1, deciding on the goal constants, and number 2, making sure that what you've decided is the right thing for you. So we start with the niche, right? At this point, you should already have your niche defined, and if you don't, well, you should visit the start of the program, which will help you with your niche selection. A niche is obviously a group of people bound together by a variable of affinity, and in business, the niche is defined as a type of business being run. So the secret to niche selection is loving it and being interested in it. If you're not passionate about your niche, you'll struggle because, well, you're going to be spending your life figuring out how to solve a problem for them. And if the niche doesn't interest you or you don't care about them, you're not going to be inspired to solve this problem regardless of the financial rewards. You need some damn passion, okay? Don't pick a niche because it's what someone else told you to pick. Conduct your own analysis, and it should be on your interests and your passions. But you should already have your niche, right? Should be fine. Now, the second thing you should already have or should be thinking about now is the problem. Once you've defined the group of people, you should try and define like the most painful problem they share. Don't worry if you can solve the problem. It doesn't really matter yet. Just focus on making sure the problem is actually existing and you're not projecting a potential problem you have onto the niche. So let's say you run a marketing business. You're looking to find a niche that struggles with customer acquisition. Obviously, that's the problem you can solve. And then the last one is solution. Right, the problem of your niche can be solved in lots of ways. Your job here is to isolate a solution that would be best for the actual niche. And this is what constitutes like the best solution. So the best solution obviously works, right? It moves the needle. Cheap, it costs little or nothing to implement for your customers. Fast, it solves the problem quickly. Simple, it's easy to deliver, doesn't have loads of moving parts and is straightforward. And number 5 is repeatable, right? The same solution can be offered to multiple businesses without variation. We don't want to be changing it every time. And you should be prudent with your solution selection. You can also just note that pretty much any skill to deliver the solution is possible to learn. You just have to make sure it actually is, working and it's cheap and fast and simple, etc. So this is a couple examples of goal constants, okay, that I've actually used to scale businesses to 7 figures. It's honestly really simple, right? This is, by the way, the most basic part of this video, but it needs to be established. We need to agree on like what the founding principles of your goal are and make sure you've got them, because you probably have them, but just becoming aware of them will help you as we progress through the video. So if we're thinking about NorthFlow Consulting, right, which is our initial business, the niche is gym owners, the problem's getting members, and the solution is ads and funnels to get people into the gym. And, it ticks all of these boxes. It works, it's cheap, it's fast, it's simple and repeatable. And then for Imperium Agency, when we were helping agency owners, or if we're helping agency owners, that's the niche. Problem, appointment setting, solution, training on outbound and inbound methods for appointment setting. Same process. These are the businesses we want to run. We want businesses that work, that are cheap, right, solution-wise, fast solutions, simple solutions, and repeatable. Right? Now, you can note that to begin with, your solution might not work. It might not be cheap, fast, and simple and repeatable. It takes work, but it can be these things. Okay, you want to figure out how to make it those things. So that's the goal constant. So what I want you to do now is basically just make a little document like this and just write down the name of your company, write what your niche is, what problem they have, and what the solution is. And I promise you probably know this, you probably already got it mapped out in your brain, but if you don't, or if it's not clear, just write it out and list it through, and then just make sure that your solution ticks these boxes, because I can tell you now that like the solution's the main thing. And if you're not, like, you can have a goal to make a certain amount of money, but if your solution is really complicated, it can't be repeated, it takes ages to deliver, it's expensive and it doesn't work, nothing really matters. And the same thing applies, is that like, you just need to be sure, like, is the problem you're trying to solve painful enough to people for people to pay you the amount of money you're asking for? And does the niche you're working in, is it actually viable? Is it scalable? Can it support the amount of money you want to make, right? So that's goal constants, okay? So now that we've defined our goal constants, we've got the sort of what of the goal out of the way. The key here is just basically don't fucking change them, okay? So once you've defined your niche and your problem and the way you want to solve that problem, keep those things, right? Now the solution might change as you progress and get better at solving the problem, but for the most part, they should all stay the same. And it means you stick with everything. Okay, so we've got our goal constants. Now, here's the thing, is we're obviously missing the variable of time, right? So let's talk about time. Let's talk about the when of the goal. So that was the goal constants, that's the what. It's really simple, right? Your goal is to make a certain amount of money. The vehicle for you doing that is through your business, and your business is basically going to be, like, at its core principle, comprised of 4 things, right? In short, it's having a group of people to sell to, it's having a problem with those group of people, and it's having a solution for the problem the group of people share, and then having enough time to basically roll that solution out through the market and make money. So let's talk about time, which is basically the when, okay? So we're going to talk about some time theory here. Most people really struggle with time, and it's basically like the key variable in achieving a goal. So let's discuss how to understand it. So obviously, like I just mentioned, people aren't great with time. And by not great or by terrible, I mean people don't really understand how time works, and their estimations and predictions of how long things take are honestly massively skewed. If you don't understand time, well then you're in for some trouble and some pain. So I'm going to teach you how I perceive time and the mental models I use to rationally justify the length of time I give myself for goals. So one of the main reasons and one of the primary reasons that people struggle with their goals is because they set them and then they give themselves like ridiculously short time frames. Now, the key to understand is that, as we've discussed, your goal's an effect, and all we have to do is like put cause to effect. So to effect, we must cause, right? Or we must cause to effect. And you are in no position to tell the universe how quickly or how slowly it should take for you to get what you want, right? What I mean by that is that it's impossible for you to rationally like observe and justify how long something's going to take to unravel, because as humans we cannot see like the underlying cause effect relationships between the things. We can understand them and like write them down and see them, but we struggle to sort of see the time lapse between those two things and how long it takes. And most people are wildly optimistic because we are by nature pain avoidance animals, right? So most people don't give themselves enough time, and then what happens is they go and try and achieve their goal, but lo and behold, because they didn't have enough time, or they didn't give themselves enough time, like by the time the time rolls around, they thought they'd have achieved it, they're not even close, and that then like creates discouragement, and they consider themselves failures. Like, you only really fail when you misjudge how long it's going to take you to do something. Because if you just say, I want to make 10 grand a month, and then remove the time frame and just work every day to make 10 grand a month, then technically the only way to fail is to actually stop trying. But if you say, I want to make 10 grand a month by May, and it's March, and then you've got 2 months to do it and you're making nothing, and then you get to May and you haven't made 10 grand a month, then your limbic system and your subconscious will start to build this identity of yourself as a failure, right? And we don't want to do that, and all because you were too fucking optimistic with your time. And then the knock-on effect of that is that you've just basically created this self-fulfilling feedback loop of you being the kind of person that struggles. So let's start with Stockdale's paradox, okay? So have you ever set a goal only to fall short and get discouraged and quit, or consider quitting? Well, I'm going to tell you a quick story about a bloke called James Stockdale. So this is James Stockdale. He is a renowned war hero from the Vietnam War, I believe in like 1960s, 1964 perhaps. What happened to James, or Mr. Stockdale here, is basically he was flying over, I think, a village or a town or city in Vietnam called Hanoi, I think. And what happened is his plane basically got shot down by the Vietnamese army, and he was basically like parachuting his way down to the ground. And as he was sort of going down, he looked down and he could obviously see like all of these Vietnamese troops basically with guns aimed at him. And one of his famous quotes is he said in his mind as he was flying down, you can just imagine the feeling you'd have in your stomach of just like, you're just gripping onto this parachute and you look down and you can just see the enemy, just like hundreds of them, just like ready to catch you as soon as you land. And he said to himself as he was falling down, he said, I'm leaving the world of technology and entering the world of Epictetus. And for those of you who don't know Epictetus, he's a Stoic philosopher, but this is where James Stockdale's philosophy came from. Anyway, the purpose of this story is to explain a sort of model or paradox that this guy developed as he was being held prisoner of war. So basically, he was captured and he was held as a prisoner of war for a long period of time throughout the Vietnamese War, and it was pretty awful for him. Now, he did live to tell the tale, fortunately, and share his incredible knowledge and fortitude and everything and his philosophies through it. But what did Stockdale say was the biggest lesson he learned from being held as a prisoner of war? Because he said something, right? And also, why should you care as a digital business owner? Right, what's the point? Well, James Stockdale came up with this quote, and it's that the optimists die first. And this is probably one of the most important things I've learned when it comes to goal setting. So the Stockdale paradox states that optimists die first. It implies that having too much faith or confidence or optimism in your ability to achieve a goal or withstand suffering leads to a lack of achievement, or in this case, death, right? Suffering and death being the staying in a prisoner of war camp and, achieving a goal or not achieving a goal is dependent on business. Now, this is a paradox because most people think that you need extreme optimism and confidence and faith and belief to achieve your goals. However, Stockdale, who obviously experienced this firsthand, he figured out it was pretty much the opposite. This was also observed by Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz. He was held in the Nazi concentration camps and the death camps. And he basically realized that like people who died the fastest were the ones who thought they were going to be rescued basically immediately. And the reason that the reason optimists die first is because they're not confronting reality, right? You want to have faith, but you also want to confront reality. So how does this actually apply to getting your goal, right? Now, don't get me wrong, you want to have levels of confidence and faith and optimism and stuff to achieve your goals, but the reason people go wrong is because they have too much faith and optimism and confidence in the time frame. So people aren't overly optimistic about what they can achieve because humans can pretty much achieve anything if physics and nature and time allows them, right? We're pretty cool. But the problem is that people are overly optimistic about the time frame over which they can achieve the said goal. In fact, humans are pretty much overly optimistic about anything related to time, right? So if you say to someone like, how long is it going to take you to do this? Or, when do you think you can get this done by? Or how long is it going to take you to drive to me? Like the over-optimism time bias is prevalent everywhere in our lives. And we all have this tendency to be over-optimistic with how long things take. And it's imperative to your success that you release and break this time bias and realign your expectations with reality. Because we want things and we want things now with the least amount of pain possible. And that's no different when you're thinking about your goal, the amount of money you want to make. However, you have to accept reality. So if you're making 5K a month and you think you're going to scale to 50K a month in the next 6 months with no business experience or proven systems, then you can think again, right? Likewise, if you're a beginner with no clients and want to get to 10K a month in the next 3 months, think again, right? Things take time. And the biggest mistake you can make with goals is having a time frame at all, right? Honestly, one of the best strategies I have for achieving like a dollar per month or whatever is to actually just remove the time frame and then just basically work as hard as I can every single day in what I call fill the present, which is basically where you do everything that can be done in that day to the best of your ability. Because we know that a goal is an effect, and we know we have to put causes to create the effect. So all we have to do is just do the causes and the goal will happen. And the universe will decide how long it takes for us to achieve the goal. But if we expect a certain time frame, it's almost always going to be out of alignment with what the universe can actually help us achieve. And by having a time frame, you either are too optimistic or too pessimistic, right? So what happens is you either think you're going to get it too soon and then you don't get it and you get discouraged, or you're pessimistic and you think it's going to take ages and then you actually stretch out the goal to take that long because that's what you've subconsciously programmed. So the best strategy I found is just to remove the time frame from the equation altogether, right? Because then what happens is if you remove the time frame and just do all that can be done every day to the best of your ability to create the goal and manifest it, then the universe will by its nature just give you the thing you want in the time over which you should be able to have it based on the actions that you take. To get what you want, you have to deserve what you want. The world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward undeserving people in short periods of time. That's what Charlie Munger said. So if you think you're going to rapidly scale to huge heights in a short period of time, you're thinking like the prisoners of war who think help is coming for them next week. Right? Your hope and faith is blind and your perceptions of what is possible over time is likely not in alignment with reality. So going back to the prisoner of war story, with Viktor Frankl, he was obviously captured and he was sent to this camp with other people and other American soldiers. And he observed, he was like, the people that died were people that thought that rescue was just a couple of days away or a couple of weeks away. You know, they were people in Auschwitz, for example, those fucking poor souls, these poor people. The ones who died first were the ones who believed the war would soon be over and the Allies would come to rescue them in the next couple of weeks. Because the next couple of weeks would roll around and lo and behold, the Allies were still fighting the war and nobody had come to rescue them. And when that happens enough to someone who's suffering, they lose faith. And when they lose faith, they die because they have no reason to live. And your body and your mind are pretty much intertwined. And like, it's the same thing with goal setting. As soon as you start to lose faith because you just keep setting goals with short periods of time, then you keep trying to achieve it and then you keep failing and you keep falling short, and then your body and you just start to stop doing the actions because the discouragement is so strong. So the best thing to do is just fucking forget about the time frame and stop being overly optimistic. Do not project what you want from time onto what is possible. Okay? And by the way, this also applies to how long you think it's going to take to fix problems, right, in your business and life as well. Like, you know, if you think it's going to take like a really short period of time to, you know, hire a sales rep, for example, well, then you're probably in for some trouble. Like the best strategy I found for anything is to be like, okay, I need a sales rep, converting it 25%. I don't say like, I need one by March. I just say I need one. And then I go and do everything I can to the best of my ability. I fill the present, which basically means doing everything I can every single day to make it happen. And then the universe will give me the sales rep when I've done enough to deserve it. But if I say I want one by March and March rolls around and I haven't got one, then I get stressed and angry and anxious, right? So the best thing to do is just forget about the time frame, man. It's like, oh, I want to build, I want to build the system for looms by April, and it's now like January. It's like, dude, you could build that system in like 3 days if you just did the whole thing in 3 days. So don't, just do everything you can, all that can be done to the best of your ability, and let the universe decide when you get what you want and remove all expectations of time. Now, there are obviously exceptions to this. You can speed up the process, right, of manifesting your goal into reality. You can get what you want quickly, but it only really helps if you have a lot of experience and know what you're doing. So here's an example, right? So right now, as of me recording this, Imperium does about $195,000. Well, this is the truth. Like in the last 30 days, we signed around, I think 29 clients at around $7,000, which means that we've made about 200 grand in the last in the last month, but it took us, we started this thing about 13 months ago. So that's obviously pretty crazy, right? Going from zero to like a multi-7-figure run rate in just over a year. But the thing is like the reason that we've been able to do that is because Bo and I have 10 years of collective experience in digital business and consulting. Prior to starting this business, I've already conducted 1,600 discovery calls, and Bo's been operating at 7 figures and doing shit like that and building funnels and ads and stuff. So you can get what you want really quickly if you've already done it, right? And you're just sort of repeating it somewhere else. But if you're starting from scratch, it's going from complete novice and complete beginner to 200K a month in 13 months just isn't possible. And Bo and I didn't even set the goal of, multi 7 figures after the first year. We just said, right, we want to get Imperium, we want to scale it as far as we can. Could be 8 figures. We're not going to be we want 8 figures by this time. We're just going to do everything we can do every day, all day, every day to the best of our ability. And then the universe will start to reward you. Like imagine if we said in 12 months we want Imperium to be making 80 grand a month, right? We would have probably got there and then we would have fallen short by, an extra 110,000, 120,000. So another example, right? When I started my first marketing agency, I went from $0 a month to $10,000 a month within the first 6 months. But prior to starting, I had 6 months of cold calling experience. I'd read over 100 books on sales and digital marketing. And I'd also sought out a couple of 7-figure mentors who were already doing what I wanted to do. And, I also had this, and still have this disgusting work ethic, right? So I don't think that just because Bo and I have done this or because I went from 0 to 10K a month really quickly that, that's what you're going to be able to do, because you have to sort of look at the conditions on which your life sits. Look at yourself, rationally observe yourself, take yourself out to the third person as if you're playing video games and look at your skills, right? Look at your character traits and your belief systems and your skill sets and who you are as a person and what you have going for you and what you have behind you in terms of business acumen. And if you haven't got a lot, it's okay, right? It's fine. If you've got a lot, then it makes sense to try and expect more quicker. But if you haven't got a lot, then expect less, right? And just align your expectations with reality. I promise. This is this is contrary to what everyone else will tell you to do, because everyone else is going to tell you that you should set these huge lofty goals and give yourself short periods of time to achieve them. But what I'm telling you is that you can't control this, the universe, right? You have no say in how quickly you can get what you want. You just have to give it your best shot and do all that can be done and just learn as much as you can, and it will give it to you. And that's what I'm saying is just, look at yourself honestly. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to ground you in reality so you don't get discouraged when your deluded optimistic time frame doesn't bring your goal to fruition. And it could happen quickly. Don't get me wrong. You could strike gold. You could have with this program, for example, you could be in a great niche. They could have a really painful problem. You could have you could already know how to solve it. And then you just need to we've had it before with people with the program where they're doing nothing and they've got a decent sort of set of skills and a decent goal constants, and then they apply the program and then they go from 0 to 50 grand a month in 3 or 4 months, right? It happens, but it's rare and it only happens because of their preconditions. So another model is to take the time frame that you want to achieve it by and just multiply it by 2 or 3 or 4 times. But the best thing to do is just remove the time frame. And this is why it's important to do, because of something called goal constant depth. Right? So now what I'm going to do is actually talk to you about why this is important. Why do we want to stop being overly optimistic, and why do we actually want to remove the pressure of time altogether? Well, it's because of this thing here, goal constant depth. So I want you to look at these 3 boxes and these 3 lines, okay? And so these denote the niche, the problem, and the solution, right? Our goal constants. This is how this all ties in. And goal constant depth is the single most important thing you need to have to achieve your goal. And what I mean by this is it's basically the depth of understanding you have around your goal constants, right? So I want you to look at this and just visualize this for me. So what we can see on the right here is we've sort of got this this graph that denotes the depth of something. And I want you to think about this being depth of understanding. Okay, so when it comes to your goal constants and how easily you can achieve your goal, the 3 most important things to understand are your niche, right? The problem the niche has and the nature of that problem and how to solve that problem for them. Now, you do need more things, right? So you also need to understand how business works, how appointment setting works, how sales works. However, that's exactly what this program is designed to give you. So this program cannot give you a perfect understanding of your niche. It can't give you an understanding of their problem. It can't give you the solution, because these are unique things and unique variables that we have no understanding of, because then it's not our niche, it's not our problem, it's not our solution. These are the things you have to understand. The depth of understanding that you need around the skills in business and appointment setting and sales and marketing and team building and systems, that's the programs for that. And you don't have to worry about that stuff because it's all covered in the videos in this program, as you'll see later on. One of these examples is the depth of understanding you have about mindset and how your personal psychology works, and that's what this module's for. But you need to understand these things deeply, because the depth of understanding you have will determine how easily you can achieve your goal. And the deeper your understanding of your niche, the problem and the solution they have, or the problem they have and the solution you have to solve the problem, it's going to be easier to solve the problem. And guess what you need to acquire a deep understanding of things? time. Okay? So it takes years to really understand a niche. It takes years to really understand their problem, and it takes years to really understand their solution, right? Or the solution that you need to build. Now, don't get me wrong, you can start a business and you can get clients immediately. But if you want to build like real solid, like multi-seven-figure businesses, it takes a long fucking time, right? Like if you look at Imperium, the reason we understand the niche so well is because we've been high-ticket entrepreneurs, we've been coaches, we've been agency owners, right? So Bo and I have been doing that for 4 or 5 years each, which means we've got 10 years of understanding that niche. And then the problem of the niche, we understand perfectly because we experienced that problem for 10 years. Well, not quite, because we've obviously solved it, but acquisition was a problem we faced. And then the solution we understand perfectly because we solved the problem for ourselves. And so the reason we can go from 0 to 200K a month within a year or two, just over a year, is because of the understanding we have around these things. Okay? And so you've either got shallow understanding or deep understanding. And entrepreneurs with shallow understanding, which is where everybody starts, it's only natural. If you're starting out and you're not making a huge amount of money, your understanding is probably shallow. That's okay. If you're a bit further down the line, you might be sort of in the middle, or you might be deeper, right? It doesn't really, it's going to depend on how much work you've done. So we've got shallow understandings, we've got deep understandings, right? A shallow understanding is when you're new to a niche, the problem, the solution. It also manifests when you've been in a niche and solving a problem for a long time, but haven't actively sought out new information about your niche and the problem and the way of solving the problem. So going back to this, right? You could be like 2, 3, 4, 5, you could be 5 years into your business, right? But if you're trying to solve a problem that existed 5 years ago with a solution that happened to work 5 years ago, then you're not going to make much money these days. This manifests in the coaching space, right? We've got coaches and people that have built programs that, they built 3 years ago and they haven't sought out or acquired new information since. A deep understanding is when you've stuck to a niche and their problem for a long time, right? A long time is like years and years of work, right? The key to understanding this mindset training is that this building a business of good infrastructure and something that builds value takes years of work. I'm talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of work. You have to come to terms with this. Instant gratification does not work in business. It doesn't exist in business. You have to just sit down at your desk for 8 to 12 hours a day and focus for 5 to 6 or 6 days a week for years on end before you can start to build things of value. And I can tell you that because it's exactly what I've done, right? You can start making quick money immediately with coaching and consulting and other high ticket stuff. However, if you want to build it for the long term, it takes a long time, right? And bear in mind that the level of your goal will reflect the level of your understanding you need, right? You don't need to be an extreme expert with really deep understandings just to hit 10K a month, but you better be deeper than just shallow. So going back to this, right? If I come out here, you don't need to be all the way down here to make 10 grand a month, right? Real deep down. And the truth is that there's no sort of cap. It just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And the deeper you go, the longer you're in it, the more you understand it, the more money you make. But when you start out, the first 0 to 6 months, first year, really, you're just going to be chilling up here. And that's okay because, it takes time to come to terms with this stuff. And, you've got to build it. So you don't have to be all the way down to make 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month. But if you want to build a multi-7-figure business, you need to be all the way down the bottom, right? Now, here's a little warning, right? You can have an extremely deep understanding of your goal constants. But over time, this understanding will turn shallow because with time, everything changes, right? The dynamics of your niche will change. The nature of the problem they have will change. Solutions that worked before will no longer be viable. Right, so a primary example of this is iOS 14 or COVID. For many digital entrepreneurs, their deep understanding was set back to shallow and their goals suffered because of this. And this, my friends, is why knowledge is power. So if we go back here, right, here's the perfect example of this is when COVID struck, when Bo and I were in the gym niche, for example, and COVID struck, and then suddenly all the dynamics of the niche completely shifted because we were working with gyms and they had to shut. The nature of their problem completely changed, and the solution that we were using to solve that problem was no longer relevant. So our understanding was set, it was sort of reset. Well, it wasn't completely reset because well, you can't really undo deep levels of understanding around those things. But my point is that, like, if we just kept doing what we were doing, it wouldn't have worked, because, well, the only constant is change. And if you don't keep up to date with shit, then you're kind of screwed. So let's use another model in time terms to understand why this sort of depth of understanding is crucial. So let's talk about effect exponentialism. So in the video where we will eventually talk about exponentialism in some more depth, like some mental models and stuff, but for now you should really understand what exponentialism means, right? Do you notice anything funny about this graph, or this sort of like thing that denotes the depth of understanding? Well, how about now if we flip it upside down? Well, what we can observe is that this graph is exponential, right? We can sort of see how it just, like hockey sticks. It's like kind of slow and then up and just shoots up. So this is effect exponentialism. And this is how this all ties in. This is how goal constants tie in with time, which ties in with optimism. So over time, effects will compound, right? And what that basically means is that, like, the extremity of the effect you can achieve is great, like, becomes greater with time. So the more you do, like, let's take outreach, for example. If you send 100 emails a day for a year, then a year from now, you'll get far more positive replies because of all the feedback you've received to improve that system. And also, someone might reply to you today from an email you sent them 6 months ago. And so if you're measuring, like, the effect of how many meetings you can book, well, then the best thing to do is just to give the system loads and loads of time, because you can start gathering metrics and feedback to improve the system. And that's how we build compounding knowledge. And that's how effects compound. So knowledge compounds, right? Now, yeah, basically it says there, do you want to know what else compounds, which is knowledge, of course. So as you learn more about your goal constants, your depth of understanding rapidly increases. And this is exponential, because in the beginning, you have to acquire a lot of knowledge to build even the most basic understanding of your chosen goal constants. So the problem here is that most people expect and want quick results, and these obviously don't exist in business. And the yellow box is where most people give up, okay? The first stages of your goal acquisition are the hardest. They're the least rewarding and also the longest, right? So when you put this concoction together of, like, something being really hard, not giving you anything back, and also taking ages and loads of pain, it sort of makes for quitting. However, I've given you the remedy for this, because if you understand that this shit, like, just by understanding this alone and understanding that it takes time, and by not giving yourself like a stupid over-optimistic time frame, you're far less likely to quit. Because my job with this video, the key is for me just to make you realize that you just have to keep going, right? You just have to define your goal constants, figure out what you want, set your goal, figure out why you want it and everything and how you're going to achieve it, and then just don't stop doing that. And the reason that you're going to quit is because it's taking longer than you're expecting, and it's just painful. So what we can observe in the green box is that after the longest period of time, the understanding spikes significantly and reaches a peak. So, like, after the longest period of time is when we start getting the most results. So it's an exponential curve, where at the bottom, as we can see on the sort of axis at the bottom here, like, it's taking ages and ages and ages to build momentum, but then after, like, well, fucking ages, it just starts to spike up and the results become exponential. And that's exactly what happened with Imperium Agency. So in the first, 6 months, we didn't really break anything beyond 20, 30 grand a month. And then by month 8, we were doing 40 grand a month. And then by month 10, we started doing 60 grand a month. And then now we're month 13, it's 190 grand a month. And so that's obviously sped up a little bit because, well, that's abnormal. But my point is that it's possible, right? So, we will call the peak, right, in this green box here, mastery. Okay? So mastery is when you've spent enough time and enough work to understand your goal constants to allow for this exponential curve to kick in. Okay? And if you've ever wondered how someone can start a business and scale it to that point within a year, it's because they've achieved mastery beforehand in goal constants similar to the new ones. And this is obviously what Bo and I did with Imperium. So, I just sort of explained exactly how we've been able to do that. And so here is the big problem, right? Here's the big problem. We now know that the ease at which you will achieve your goal depends on how well you understand your goal constants. And if you're wondering why like this understanding is so important, it's because like your business is basically comprised of these three things, right? Understanding your niche, knowing what problem they have and understanding the nature of it, and then knowing how to solve that problem. And like the deeper you understand those variables, the easier it is for you to navigate and make decisions around what's best to actually achieve your goal. You can put cause to effect better. So we now know also that knowledge compounds, meaning that the results you get will become, well, exponentially more extreme with more time. So the big problem here, and this is the big problem, this is what happens, this comes when someone decides on their goal constants only to switch them out after a short period of time. Okay? So most people give up before their understanding of their niche problem and solution can start to compound, and they give up during the hardest and most painful part. So the reason people switch niche is because what they're doing is simply too difficult, or they run into a problem they feel like they cannot solve. Right? So if you're figuring out how to deliver coaching for people in, I don't know, like health coaching or something, and you're running into this problem where you can't seem to get people to pay high ticket. And then you think, oh, do you know what? Maybe I should just try this niche instead because maybe they'll pay high ticket. Like that's why people give up, is because they run into a problem that becomes too painful to solve, or they believe it can't be solved. Now, all they have to do is stick with that problem and solve that problem, as pretty much every problem can be solved, and then move on. And then like every time you solve a problem, like chunk, you move down that sort of depth of understanding, right? And there will be peaks, there will be points up to which like you're just sort of on the precipice, like you just have to solve one problem to start seeing exponential progress. Because like where we are here, with this point here, like if you can make it to like here, like just here, then everything's like boom, like everything, you just sort of fly down here really fucking quickly, and then you start making a shitload of money. So like, as you're building your solution in the early stages, it feels like, you're making some progress, but the progress is so slow and so excruciating. And then ironically, what happens is like, there's a really painful problem around like at this point right here, which could be like, tracking for e-com businesses, or it could be anything. And you probably are aware what the problem might be right now. And then you're just like, oh, I just can't seem to do it. And then like, so what you do is you think, oh, I'll try this solution instead. And then you reset back to here. And then with that new solution, you move forward and forward and forward and forward. And then you get to here. And then there's a really difficult problem, a really thorny one that you can't overcome. You're like, no, I'll just try this one instead. And then and most people's, like most entrepreneurs, like careers just look like this. Like, and it doesn't have to be the solution. It could be the problem. So they're like, oh, I'm trying to solve this problem for this niche. And then like it's like, oh, I just can't figure out this lead quality thing for them. Or I just can't figure out how to get them to fix their mindset. It's just too much of a problem. I'll just try this one instead. And then and like, the problem is you'll notice that like the amount of money you can make is congruent with the depth of understanding you have. So the reason most people are constantly plateaued at a certain amount of money is because they only ever reach a certain amount of understanding, which is like here. They're like, oh, I'm going to pick this solution. They're like, oh, this is painful chunk. And like, because you're doing all this work, like this point here requires like the most work and the most pain for the least amount of reward. So your limbic system in this motion here is like, what the actual fuck are you doing? Like, this is horrible. I can't like justify doing this. But then all you have to do is just remember this graph. And then when it feels like it's most painful, it's when you're about to just completely fly down the ranks here. And I tell you what, man, like when you just like jump over to this point here and you just start flying down, it's the best feeling in the world. Like nothing is more gratifying and rewarding than knowing that you gave this thing some time and stuck it out. But what will happen is like the opportunity and pain are pretty much synonymous. So the point at which you are in the most pain is the point at which you're about to just completely break down a new level and fly down to the bottom, and your depth of understanding will just compound, and then you can just make as much money as you want, basically. So you have to understand that these things take time. And so like this is obviously like niche hopping, right? This is the nature of it. It's the grass being greener. It's when the person offering coaching to like help, it's like the person offering the person offering coaching to agency owners decides to suddenly switch to gym owners, right? And they just make that decision to switch because agency owners are too difficult to work with or whatever. And then they completely reset their understanding, and then they just go back to square one. Now, there are times where it does make strategic business sense to switch niche or change solution or change problem. So for example, like when COVID hit, Bo and I had no choice but to move towards the solution, right? Like we had to change the solution. The problem had shifted, the niche had shifted. Another example of this is with Imperium Agency. When I'm recording this right now, we work predominantly with agency owners. However, that niche and that market is only so big, and we're scaling pretty quickly. And we're thinking, well, okay, this doesn't have like huge amounts of longevity. We can start thinking about switching towards coaches and consultants, which is exactly what we're thinking about doing. And like, we're not resetting our like solution and niche and stuff because it's easier. We're doing it because it makes strategic business sense, because we're going to exhaust the market soon, right? Now, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Like, there are so many agency owners in this market that we could work with. However, like, we have to start thinking about these things, like what is more scalable, what makes more strategic business sense, who can afford higher ticket prices and such. And so there is a time and a place to reset and switch, right? However, because we understand like the coaching space better than anyone else, we can make that switch and it won't be difficult at all. So this is just a graph I drew up. It's pretty untidy, I know, but I did freehand this with my mouse. It's not the best, but like the principle is the same. You can sort of see like the blue denotes the understanding of goal constants and the purple denotes the amount of money. And like what we can observe is that like here is just pure pain, because we're doing lots of work and not making any money, but then suddenly like something happens and we solve one problem and then it unlocks the key to everything. And this is where most people give up, right? Every time you switch goal constants, you reset your progress to zero. In other words, you don't give your understanding enough time to compound. So most people who keep switching around from niche to niche or problem to problem or solution to solution, they build an understanding and then like they find it too difficult and then they switch and they go back and it just creates all this stupidity, right? And then they understand like a lot, like they understand a little about a lot, right? And you can't do much with that basically. So you must give your niche, your problem, and your solution time, right? Remember the equation. It's n plus p plus s to the power of time, right? Time, switch time back out. And, if you switch them out at the, like, if you just decide like one day, like, oh, do you know what, this niche, like, I just don't think it's working, or like this problem, it's just like really annoying, or I can't really do this solution anymore. I just want to try this instead. If you switch them out, then you're going to be resetting yourself back to zero. So the most important thing to remember is this here, right? It takes time, it's painful, it takes years and years and years and years and years, and you get down here and it's just so excruciating, and you can't, like, you're blind to what's going to happen next, because all you've seen in the last like 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 months is just slow progress and pain. And then just like you solve this and then whoa, there, down you go, right? So stick to the damn thing that you pick, okay? It's important. So that's my point. You've got to give yourself time. You've got to understand and come to terms with the fact this is going to take years of work, action, and pain. The best thing you can do right now is come to terms with the fact that this is going to take time, right? You might, that probably disappoints you. You're probably feeling some negative emotion. You probably don't want to believe me. You probably think it doesn't apply to you, right? Your subconscious right now is probably conjuring up emotions or thoughts or beliefs or feelings that try to disagree with this statement, because it wants it immediately. It wants it now. And deep down, it probably wants you to fail. Your brain's very good in knowing what you should do and what you shouldn't do based on what you want. And what I mean by that is it knows you really well. So it knows that like by setting a really drastic over-optimistic time frame that you're going to get discouraged. And so by actually like having an over-optimistic time frame, you're inadvertently self-sabotaging. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's an unconscious thing that you're doing. So the key to building your dream life is to let go of time frames, because your goals will change over time as you continue to transcend yourself. This is the other thing as well. Like you can't, like, we can't, like, human beings don't understand exponentialism against time. Like, time is not linear. Like, effects are not linear. They compound over time. And like, if you just think like, oh yeah, I'm going to have like this in 2 years, like it could be 2 years and 1 month is what you needed. That last month is where that shit could have just gone completely exponential. Like if you're like, I want to get to 100K a month in a year, it's like, well, maybe it would have just taken you like a year and 3 months. And like the first year is that sort of like, long end of that tail where it's just really slow growth. And then the last 3 months is where it all takes off. But because you think it's going to take a year, you don't give it the extra time. So remember, you have to fill the present, right? What that means is each day is an opportunity to put causes into motion that contribute towards the effect you want. It is your duty and your job every single day to define those actions and to complete them to the best of your ability. And we'll talk about what those actions are later. But you have to do it, and you have to do it without the expectation of how long it's going to take for those causes to manifest into an effect. So you wake up, you look at what you've got to do, you make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with what you want, right? So outreach, sales, calls, team building, system building, whatever it might be. And you squeeze as much as you can. You don't overdo it, but you don't procrastinate. You do everything that you can do today to achieve your goal every single day for years on end without any expectation of when you're going to get what you want, because you can never predict it. Okay. So now I'm going to reveal how to find the drive that will motivate you to achieve your goal. So like obviously now we've just had a bit of a chat about that time and like what your goal is and what it comprises of and like what you need to understand to like achieve the goal and everything. But why do we want to achieve them, right? Now this is one of the most profound things and one of the most profound questions a human being can understand and can do. And I'm going to share it with you now, because understanding why you want your goal is to understand the goal itself. So now we're going to talk about discovering your drive vacuums. And this is going to completely, this thing, when I did this myself, I was like, holy shit. Like, you have to realize that like the surface level of the goal, that sort of like amount of money that you want to make, that's not really the goal at all. Because where the hell does that number come from? Right? What have you thought it through? Have you critically sat down and decided no, all of these sort of like desires and ambitions that we have that move us towards a trajectory or that put us on a trajectory to achieve a future, like the number is a tangible way for our brain to decide what we want. But what that number represents is what's really important. And we want to uncover the motivation behind the number because it allows us to understand the nature of why we want what we want. And that allows us to align our efforts. And I promise this will be the most useful thing you do. So let's hop into discovering your drive vacuums. So don't be afraid by the weird words or strange name. All of this will make sense in just a second. So let's sort of talk about your drive vacuums and what a drive vacuum actually is first of all. So a drive vacuum is basically like, it's the thing that's underneath the goals we've discussed, and let's talk about it now. So at first glance, your goal will seem simple, it will seem direct, and it will seem straightforward. But you've got to recognize that your financial goal is not really a goal, it's not really what you want, and it's actually not what you're working for at all. Goals reveal drives, okay? And by drive, I mean subconscious thing, right? Like it's a subconscious directive. Like it's a subconscious instruction that is putting our body into motion to achieve something that we want. So drives help us understand ourselves. Once you've stripped this dollar per month number or euro per month number or pound per month number, once you stripped it down to the purest and most fundamental reason you want to grow your business, we have your drive. And this is the most enlightening thing a human can do. Because once you bring this reason to your consciousness, you can use it every day to fuel your discipline and transformation and bring even more order to the chaos surrounding life. This is how we figure out why you do what you do, and most importantly, why you're putting yourself through all the fucking pain in the first place. Because in case you hadn't noticed, building a business and trying to achieve a goal is pretty fucking painful. It hurts, man. Like it's not an easy thing to do. However, we have to offset that pain and that suffering against a really solid reason. As Nietzsche said, he who has a why can bear almost any how. And if you haven't consciously justified the why, then you're going to never consciously justify the work, right? So subconsciously, your subconscious knows what you want, but until you come to terms with knowing exactly what that is, in your cognitive mind, consciously thinking about it and visualizing it, then when it comes to actually doing the work, it's going to be really hard because you don't necessarily see a reason. So let's discover your drive vacuums, and I want you to do this now. So don't put this off. We cannot proceed without you doing this. So here's what I want you to do. Right, I want you to do this right now. So there's instructions on the screen. pause the video, and please, for the love of God, do not continue until you've done this. You might think, oh yeah, fuck that, it's just, this is some stupid hippie psychology stuff, like I just want to learn about looms and I can't be bothered. I promise, you need to do this. So, number 1, get a blank sheet of paper and a pen and write down 5 bullet points. Right? Next to number 1, put down your desired monthly revenue for your business. Number 2, I want you to ask yourself why you want this number. Right? Write it down next to number 2. And then step number 3 is I want you to ask yourself why you want the thing in number 2. And then for number 4, you ask yourself why you want the thing in number 3. And you just keep going, right? You keep going again and again until you get to the bottom of why you want this damn money. So 5 might be enough, but you might need to ask why 10 times or 15 times, right? This will take thought and it will take concentration and it will not come naturally to you to begin with. Do not be surprised if it takes you over an hour, but I promise it will be worth it. You want to remove all distractions and just sit in a room by yourself with a pen and paper, lie down on the floor, if you want to do that. I mean, it sounds a bit crazy, but that's how I, if I'm really thinking through something critically, I will actually just sprawl out on the floor with a pen and paper and then just think. It's a pretty difficult skill to acquire, but think it through until you're certain of the base drive. So the base drive is it's when you hit rock bottom, and you'll know when you've hit rock bottom because you won't be able to tell yourself why you want that thing. Okay? And you have to be honest with yourself. Now the chances are that your goal might reveal some ugly motives, right? Or some purer, healthier ones. But either way, we can understand these motives to realize why we feel compelled to chase after our goal. And this will give us a big advantage. So what I'm saying here is there's a chance that when you reveal the unconscious and make the unconscious conscious, you might not like what you see, right? But that's okay. No one's here to judge anyone. You're not showing this to anybody else but yourself. And there's only benefit and there's only upside to understanding this stuff. So I want you to just do this now. Pause the video, pen and paper, write down a list of numbers 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Write down at number 1 what you want in terms of financial reasons, and then just keep going down asking why you want what you want. So 10 grand a month, why do I want that? Well, I want that because I want money. Well, why do I want money? I want it so I can be financially free. Why do I? And just keep going down, down and down and down. And just, if you don't think you have an answer, just spend 15 minutes just thinking about it. And then eventually you'll get to the bottom and there'll be a reason. And you won't be able to explain the reason because you'll have got to the bottom. This is critical thinking. Okay? So here's an example, right? I'm going to tell you now, this stuff can get ugly. Right? So just be prepared to remove all judgment from yourself because, sometimes you're going to reveal some stuff that you might not have wanted to find. So here is an example. And this is honestly what this shit can look like. I'm not even joking, right? So the goal could be, I want to make $20,000 per month. And then you'd say, well, why? Why do you want $20,000 a month? And it would be because you want more money. Well, why do you want more money? I want to buy a Lamborghini. Well, why do you want a Lamborghini? Well, I desperately crave attention, right? Now, that's not something to laugh at. It's just the truth. Because most people that buy expensive cars, it's usually for a reason that isn't as pure as they would want it to be. And there's no judgment. And it might not always be the case that someone who buys an expensive car does it because of this. But for the most part, someone that's making nothing and wants to buy a Lamborghini, it's probably because they want to seem like the person that makes a lot of money. So the why would be, I want attention. And then the why to that, why do you desperately crave attention? Well, growing up, your parents didn't give you enough attention. So the goal, right? So you can't really answer that well, why didn't my parents give me enough attention? You enter some fucking Freudian shit if you go down that route. But you can't really answer. That's the base reason as to why. So the goal here is to satisfy an unconscious craving for attention to fill a hole from your childhood. Right? So we took this all the way down from the top to the bottom. So you have to do this because you have to come to terms with why you're working. And so sometimes you'll find your reason and it will make you uncomfortable. And, sometimes it makes perfect sense. And I would almost recommend, if you get to the bottom and it looks like this, I would recommend seeking out a therapist to help you with navigating this. Because, you might want the Lamborghini, but well, why? It's a similar thing to why does someone want to lose weight? Or maybe they were bullied for their weight as a child, right? And that created like real pain, and now that manifests into their goal of wanting to lose weight. So like the way this works is it's like the adult self is built and designed to care for the child self. So who you were as most of these problems will manifest from childhood or your years as a teenager. Okay, so here's an example number 2. I want to make $10,000 per month. Why do you want to make that? Because I want to quit my job. Why? Because I hate my job. Why? Because I hate being told what to do. Why? Because it makes me uncomfortable to know that someone can exercise power over me and determine the quality of my life. Okay, well, you could go further and say, well, why does it make you uncomfortable? But we can observe here that the goal is to take control over the life. Okay, so here's mine, right? In case you're wondering, we can get deep here. This was my initial goal. So my initial goal was to make £8,334 per month, because if you times that by 12, you get exactly 100,000 a year, right? And I hit it, and it was cool. But, well, why do I want to make that money? It was because I want to make 6 figures a year. And like, well, why did I want to make 6 figures a year? Well, it's because I didn't want to have to go down the route of getting a 9 to 5. And it's like, well, why didn't I want to get a 9 to 5? Well, it's because being average really scared me. Well, why does being average scare you? Well, it's because you've got some base level narcissism, Charlie, right? I realized this. I was like, you have to understand yourself, because if you don't, you don't know why you're working. It's never just to make the money and get the thing. And coming to terms with this stuff is ridiculously powerful. I have some base level narcissism in my personality that rejects mediocrity and needs to be channeled. And the goal was to escape, right? The goal was to escape a life that didn't align with my sense of self. And that's really powerful shit. So I tell you, if you dig deep enough, you will find stuff that you don't want to find. And that's okay. But digging these things out and rooting them up is actually the healthiest thing you can do, because, well, it allows you to come to terms with it. And coming to terms with it is pretty cool. So understand that we don't create goals to move towards a better future. We create them to move away from a painful current present. And goals are a mechanism of faith used to soothe our current pain and give us hope there is a better future. So the way in case you're wondering, the way your subconscious and the way your brain deals with this shit that you've had to withstand either in your childhood or whatever, it deals with it by setting a goal, and then the goal becomes the order to the chaos. And we talked about this earlier. So another example of this, I can give you another personal example. When I was growing up, when I was going through my sort of adolescent years of as a teenager from 13 to 17, I was really bad with women, and I got no female attention, and that made me really insecure. And so what happened when I was 18 is I started to feel this just drive, this sense of just real purpose, of real sort of discipline to build a business and make money. And I didn't analyze it at the time, but it wasn't until only in the last couple of years that I look back and I thought, well, why did I have that drive? Why did I want to make, $100,000 a year? And when I dug down and when I started asking why, I was I did this, and there might be an example in a second, but I was like, it's the same principle. Why do I want to make, $100,000 a year? And I had you'll have multiple of these. So one of them was I was scared of being average, but the other was women. And I was like, well, I want to buy a nice car and have a cool flat and, have all this shit. I was like, well, why do I want that? And then I was like, because I want a girlfriend. Well, why do I want a girlfriend? Well, that's pretty straightforward. It's so that you can, so that your limbic system knows it can produce offspring. And, that's just how most guys are wired. And I can't speak for everyone, but that's how I was wired. And then I was like, well, why do I want that? And I was like, because I was always rejected by girls. And so what was happening is as I was becoming an adult, my subconscious mind was starting to set goals that allowed me to take care of the child within. And so by achieving the goal, the drive vacuum, right? The reason it's called a vacuum is because it's the way a Hoover works. It's emptied out, if that makes sense. The vacuum is created because there's a hole that needs to be filled, right? The goal, when you hit the goal, the space in your life that you're trying to fill, the pain you're trying to soothe, is soothed by achieving the goal. And so if you're wondering why you've got this strange sense of motivation, it's probably because of something that happened to you. Or it could be another one, for example, you could have a more, well, actually, no, I'm not going to look at this in sort of like a positive or negative light. There's no such thing as a positive or negative drive. It's just, it is what it is. So another drive that would potentially be deemed more positive in other people's eyes would be like, you know, I've got an upcoming, like my child's going to be born in 9 months and my family's totally broken. We've got no money. And I don't want my child to have the life that I had. Something like that, for example. And then fuck, dude, you're working for your unborn child. Like you're gonna pull your finger out and really get into it. Okay. So we understand this, that goals are subconscious manifestations of pain avoidance. They're aligned with our deepest fears, traits, needs, and desires. So if you've got a goal, it's not because you've cognitively, consciously thought of it and just produced it. That shit's coming from somewhere down deep. And it's like a string, and all you have to do is just keep asking why you want it and keep going down and down and down. And it might take, weeks or months or even years of reflection and meditation, and you'll eventually reveal fundamental cause and real truth in yourself that you didn't know you had. And understanding these traits and fears and stuff and all the desires, it equips us with a knowledge that gives us a huge advantage because they allow us to avoid a crucial mistake. So the reason that we want to dig all this stuff out and the reason we want to understand why is because it helps us understand ourselves, which means that look at it like this. In business, it's you versus yourself. What that means is that you are the enemy, right? There's a part of you that is going to self-sabotage. And if the better you understand yourself, the better you understand your enemy. Okay? And so the more of this shit you can pull up and understand, and the more of this stuff that's unconscious you can bring to your consciousness, the more you know what you're up against or what you have going in your favor to push you towards the goal. Okay? So they also allow us to avoid a pretty crucial mistake, which is obviously what happens when you get the goal. Because if we've got a vacuum and we fill that like a dry vacuum, an unconscious hole to fill, and we fill that hole by achieving the goal, then all of the motivation and all of the desire and all of the incentive and the drive forward to achieve that thing is just suddenly stripped out from beneath us. And so when that happens, it's like, well, what's left? Well, as we know, these are the dangers of dry vacuums. As we know, goals are subconscious manifestations of desire that have root in a fear, trait, or desire, which is actually usually multiple fears or desires. And we call these fears or desires drive vacuums. And these drives come from our childhood because we typically lacked something. So I mentioned this earlier, but in school I was a teenager, no luck with girls, faced a lot of rejection, and this created an unconscious vacuum of a drive for a mate or a girlfriend. So, we can see how, because I didn't have what I needed biologically throughout those teenage years, when I started becoming an adult, my subconscious kind of had no choice. And this won't happen every time. Like some people become fucking incels, stuff like that. No judgment, but you can go all sorts of different directions. But I was fortunate that it became like a positive thing and started to drive me towards getting what I wanted. And upon reflection, with the advantage of maturity in retrospect, if I'm being honest, when assessing my motivations for starting my business, the drive for attention from women was at the forefront of my drive vacuums. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. That was what got me started. The reason I wanted to start, and now I'm looking at it, the reason I wanted to make that money was because I wanted female attention. And I started my first business out of self-hate and anger. And that's not even an exaggeration. I really didn't like myself. I was angry at the world, and I was just a loser. I was just this skinny kid with a video game addiction, with no real prospects for anything. And then I was like, oh, but I've got so much potential. I could be more than that. And then that all manifested into this, who I am now. And I've been able to work through all that stuff with a therapist. It's pretty deep stuff to work through, but sometimes the most profitable thing you can do is therapy. Now, here's where this creates a problem. So eventually I made my, 100 grand a year, right? It felt great. And I ended up getting loads of dates and, having a great time. School teenage me definitely loved it, right? But once I'd filled this drive vacuum, my motivation for work completely dropped and I ended up regressing way back. It was like my subconscious had just said mission accomplished and signed out, right? So this is the danger. This is the downside to dry vacuums, because right now they work in your favor because they push you. But as soon as you fill that hole, and as soon as that vacuum is filled, right, as soon as that unconscious desire or that unconscious fear or whatever it might be is sort of like, checked off, well then all of the drive that you had is just gone. Because like what was driving you was that like vacuum, that thing that had nothing in it, and now you've put something in it, it doesn't drive you anymore. It's kind of just like, imagine a dry vacuum is just like an empty stomach, right? It just makes your body move towards achieving the goal of eating something, and then once you've eaten something, it doesn't need anything until it gets hungry again, but that kind of doesn't happen with dry vacuums. So that's like the problem. Like, well, what do we do about this? The moral of the story is that, well, your dry vacuums will get you your goal, but they won't help you beyond that. Understanding why you're putting yourself through the pain of going after your goal is helpful, but once you have like the physical item you wanted, once you have the tangible thing like the money or the car or the travel or the financial freedom, your motivation to continue driving forward and making progress as a human will diminish. And that creates fucking pain, right? Because what happens is when you see personal progress, you get addicted to it. And let's say you go from 0 to 10k a month because you want female attention, right? You get 10k a month, you get female attention. Now your dry vacuum is gone. However, you've gone from 0 to 10 grand a month, and now you've got this sense of identity where you're an entrepreneur and you're the type of person that grows yourself. But now all of your motivation to grow yourself is stripped of you because you've achieved the goal. So now you've got this cognitive dissonance between wanting to do more because it's your identity and it's what you've become, but not having the motivation to do it. Creates pain, right? I've been there too many times, and I can speak from experience. This is deep psychological shit that no one talks about, man. Like nobody even knows this stuff exists. It's just taken me a long time to suss it out. So, this is why on this fourth bullet point here, this is why people stagnate and get stuck. They hit a goal, but then they lose the drive and the work ethic that got them there because the unconscious has filled the dry vacuums it wanted to fill, and the motivation is gone. If a subconscious drive is powerful enough, the human will figure out how to fulfill it. This, of course, is a simplification of the human condition and why we do things. After all, it's a model. Like models are simplifications. But I've observed this in myself. I've observed it in countless entrepreneurs and other friends of mine, and I've read more books on psychology than I can actually count. It's quite embarrassing how many books I've read on psychology. It's ridiculous. But this is the sum of it. And so if you're already making good money and feel comfortable, then your past and current stagnation is nothing but a byproduct of no longer having the subconscious drives that pushed you in the first place. So what happens here? So you're going to be in two positions. You're either really motivated and you've got this pain, right? Because this is really the main sort of indication of having a dry vacuum is pain. Because once you hit 10, 20 grand a month, you start whatever, 100 grand a month, whatever that looks like to achieve what you want, you're no longer going to be in pain. But then you'll be in so much comfort that comfort produces pain, because the comfort is what inhibits your ability to keep working. So you're always going to be in pain, but it's just which type of pain. Like, is your pain a manifestation of like a fear or desire and not having filled that? Or is the pain coming from the comfort? So we need to know how to navigate both these scenarios. So let's talk about the psychology of stagnation quickly. So understanding that your dry vacuums will give you the drive to achieve your goal is important, but knowing that there is a strong danger is important as well. So once you achieve your goal and satisfy the dry vacuums, your behavior will revert and you will either regress or do just enough to maintain but not grow. So this can happen because you might make the money 1 month and then you're going to stop doing it because your brain, your subconscious can't really predict the future, right? So like you gratify the dry vacuum, you get it, and then like suddenly what happens is the next month or 2 months later, you just stop working and then you're back to square one and then you go all over again. And if you're at the point where you feel comfortable and your business, as soon as you feel comfortable, you know you're in some fucking trouble, right? Business-wise. As soon as you start to feel some comfort, you're really going to start to stagnate, because if your business is stagnant and plateaued in terms of revenue, then the quickest way to fix the plateau is by doing some soul searching and digging into your whys. You need to find out why you actually want to grow the thing. Because if you don't have a why, then your limbic system and body won't bear any how. So like I mentioned this earlier, like if you want your body and your mind to do the work, you need to give a reason. You kind of have to like cash it in and be like, right guys, okay character, or okay body, okay consciousness, okay cognitive efforts. Here's why I want you to do this thing. Like, it's called reason respecting tendency in psychology. Like, we need to have a why. And initially, in the early stages of entrepreneurship, your subconscious takes care of that for you because, well, something has happened. Like, your family haven't got enough money, or your dad was an asshole to you. Like, this, by the way, wasn't my case, but just picking out of thin air. Like, your parents were horrible and said you'd never succeed and you want to prove them wrong, or you're terrified of being poor because that's what you grew up around, or because in your childhood, like, someone bullied you and said you'd never do anything and you want to prove them wrong. And like, you usually start a business out of some sort of anger, right? Anger or fear. And once the anger or fear is tempered down by having achieved the goal, it then manifests into comfort because, well, it can't really go anywhere else. And then you're sort of stuck because you don't know why you're working anymore. So you need to start figuring out what's next. And the key is to realize that we don't have business problems. If your business is plateaued, it's not a business problem, it's a personal problem, right? The personal problem you've got is comfort usually, and the personal problems appear in the business. And if you don't have a strong sense of why, then there's no point in having all of our appointment booking systems or scripts or funnels, because you won't use them, right? You'll stop believing they work, or you'll unconsciously do anything you can to sabotage your results and stay where you are. So we need to clean this out. We need to figure out why you're working. Because like right now, you might actually know your drive vacuum, and you might not be making much money, and you want to make money, and you know why you're working, and that's fine. But like, it will happen. You'll get your goal if you follow the stuff in the program and you channel that unconscious, like, chaotic energy that you've got onto the program. You'll get what you want. But when you get what you want, you'll become comfortable, and then you'll be in pain, and you'll come back to this, and you'll have to redo it. So if you're at the point where you're making good money and you're comfortable, but your business is stagnant, it's because you aren't connected with a strong reason. So now let's talk about discovering your higher purpose. Okay, so we need to sort of transcend like our reasoning. And so I've got a resource to help you do this. Okay, this is the solution to comfort. A lot of entrepreneurship is just battling comfort, basically. Okay, so the human condition requires justification to withstand the pains associated with growth. Money is never the goal. It's what pain is alleviated by the money that is the goal, and it's what mission is accomplished. It's what pain is alleviated by the money that is the goal initially, and it's what mission is to be accomplished after this. So what that means there is, in the early stages, you're motivated by pain avoidance and by numbing pain. But in the late stages, you have to become a mission-led entrepreneur. And your why and your reasoning has to transcend your personal wants and desires. So right now you'll be in two states of minds, right? You have drive vacuums that are unfulfilled, and these are pushing you towards a tangible number that you and your subconscious believes to be the way to escape the pain. This resource isn't relevant to your situation, so you come back to it when you hit your goal and start experiencing some, what I would call, toxic comfort associated with it. Number two, this is where you might be. You have enough money to comfortably live and have already fulfilled your base drive vacuums. You are now experiencing a battle with comfort. This resource is for you. So here's why. Questions to meditate on. So this isn't something that I can just SOP. I can't just give you like a simple, I wish I could, but this is like an activity that you have to do in your own time. Like, it has to be a bit of soul searching, and it's your soul, not mine, so I can't search it for you. But I can give you questions to dig something up. So if you want to continuously be driven to grow, your work has to mean something. Past a certain point, money will lose its strength of meaning to you. This will happen. Once you give a man or a woman enough money to do whatever they want and go where they want when they want, why would you want any extra money? Like, what's the point? Like, if you've got if you haven't got massive expenses and you've got a business that passively makes you $100,000 a month, then why would you want any more money? Why would your subconscious, or why would your limbic system or behavioral mechanisms that drive your body want you to do anything? Like, they just won't. Money will lose its meaning to you. Your work has to matter to you and other people. So here are some questions you can ask yourself to figure this out. And this has personally taken me years, right? So don't expect it to be immediate. So ask yourself these questions. I've listed them out. Why do you and your business exist, other than for the purpose of making money? If you went out of business, who would care? If you stop working, would the future of the world be any different? Would it matter to anyone if you went out of business? Why should extremely talented people relocate and quit their jobs and dedicate their lives to this thing? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why do you need to make sacrifices for this thing? Now, your answers here can be macro or micro. So when I'm talking about like, would it matter to anyone if you went out of business, right? It could either be like the entire population of the world, or it could just be your family, right? There's no right or wrong answer, but what matters is that you have a why. So you can be working for your family, you can be working for your future family, you can be working for your community, you can be this is like an element of responsibility. So once you've solved your own shit with business, once you've solved your own dry vacuums and your own money, and you've taken care of yourself, and you've now taken responsibility for your situation and your life, and you no longer have like extreme problems that cause you extreme discomfort related to things within your control, it's time to start branching out. So maybe the next, this is honestly the model I use, is once I've taken care of my shit, my responsibility then extends to people I love and helping take care of their shit. And by shit, I mean suffering. So you need to start seeing your work, and I'm not saying you need to, but this is how I've done it, is I pulled myself out of this battle of comfort, and I won the battle of comfort by realizing that I wasn't suffering anymore, which meant that I now had potential to reduce the suffering of people around me in my family. And then once I've taken care of my family, I've got the ability to start extending out the reduction of suffering in my community. And then I can start doing it globally, and then countrywide and nationwide. And you can eventually just you want to see your business as a vehicle for you to eliminate the suffering of other people that mean something to you. That's fucking meaningful. That's how you produce meaning. That's how you get out, because then you're no longer getting out of bed for your own end. You're no longer getting out of bed to make yourself money. You're getting out of bed because you want to reduce the suffering of someone that you love. And that's a very strong drive. And this is meaning through responsibility. So this is basically what I was just talking about, right? I managed to transcend my dry vacuums by recognizing that the meaning in my life was derived from taking responsibility for suffering other people. So putting it simply, get up and put in the work for other people. As a human, you're too familiar. This is deep shit, but as a human, you are all too familiar with your flaws, your personal laziness, your dark thoughts, your negative emotions, and your bad or destructive behaviors. All of the bad stuff you've thought or done, you know about it, and no one else shares this burden with it. You know what you've done or haven't done, and you know what potential you have that you haven't fulfilled, and you know what your self-sabotage patterns, and you know whether you're a good person or not, and you know what would make you a bad person if you were one. There's no judgment here, but you may find it extremely hard to work for yourself because of this. So the knowledge you have of yourself and who you are, you might not want to help that person. Well, no, this is really deep, and I don't mean this I encourage self-love, but self-sabotage can be a manifestation of self-hate. So you should work on rekindling your relationship with yourself, because you will want to help yourself. But if you find yourself in a constant state of self-sabotage, it's worth entertaining the idea that the reason you're sabotaging yourself is because the way you've behaved in the past is out of alignment with the values that you hold near and dear to your heart. And so if you observe this, let's say you've got a client who's really horrible and they don't align with your values, and you find them to be really nasty and horrible, and then they ask for some help, you probably say no. But if you are that client to yourself, then you're not going to do anything to help them. So you need to, if this is your situation, I would advise seeking out a therapist and trying to start, and the way you fix this is just by starting to behave properly, because then you can fix the problem by going to the root and starting to if you have negative behaviors and you go out and drink a lot when you say you don't want to drink but you do drink, or if you say I'm not going to do this but I do this, or you do drugs but you don't want to do drugs, just stop doing the behavior and you'll start to rekindle the relationship with yourself. But you need to start treating yourself as though you are someone responsible for taking care of. So there's a study that actually shows that humans are more likely to remember their dog's medicine than their own. And what that tells us, and what that tells the scientific community, is that people care more about their pets than they do themselves, because they love their pets and they don't love themselves. Now, if you're in that position, then the way you fix this, like I said, is by starting to behave in a way that's congruent with what you truly value, or start talking to a therapist and figure out why you keep self-sabotaging, and it will become pretty evident to you why. Just go to a therapist and say, listen, I keep going through these periods where like I make progress and then I break it all down, and then they'll work that through with you, and it's pretty enlightening. It's helped me massively. I've done a fair bit of therapy, and it's helpful, man. But this obviously takes time. So in the meantime, you can also, like, the second way to do this, and I do both, is to figure out who you want to help, why you want to help them, and get to work doing so. So this is crazy. Like, you're probably thinking, like, Charlie, this program is supposed to just help me like build my business and start making more money, and now you're telling me to get a therapist and like take care of myself and rekindle my relationship with myself. Like, what are you on about? Like, this is actually the most profitable stuff you can do is like dive into your mind and your psychology and your subconscious and fix it. Because if you fix yourself, then you fix your business, because your business is an extension of yourself, right? And like, you know, meaning through responsibility. Right now, you might keep self-sabotaging because you are comfortable, and you know like what you've done, you know that you might not deserve to succeed, and you know like what you're like, so you don't try. But if you're doing it for someone else and other people, then you're going to do it. So this is where having a problem and a mission and a vision comes in, because like if you want to become a sort of like mission-led entrepreneur, and you want to extend your motivations and reason for working beyond your personal gain, then having like a group of like people to solve a problem for, or having a vision or a mission, is really helpful for this, because it allows you to actually like tangibly like map out why you're working for reasons other than yourself. So human beings have problems. These problems create cause and create pain and suffering in their life. As a developing entrepreneur, you have the potential to solve these problems and remove this suffering. Pick a damn problem and make it your why. So the problem is like, well, what problem do you see present in the world you want to solve? Why is it important? Who faces it? And why do you want to fix it? Write it here. By the way, you can make a copy of this document by going up here and clicking to file and make a copy, right? And then vision, right? What is the vision of your company, right? Once your company has solved the problem, what will the world look like? And you can write that here. And then the mission is, how will you achieve your vision and solve this problem? And you can write that here. So like, this is a really important thing to do, man, because like, if you've got this issue where you keep getting comfortable and you fulfilled all your dry vacuums and you keep self-sabotaging because you don't want to make any progress because there's a part of you that you don't love, then you need to find a group of people you do love and then figure out how you can help them alleviate their suffering, right? And if you want to figure out how to do that, then you just figure out what their problem is, and this manifests. So here's an example. If you're really struggling to define like the problem, the vision, the mission, you can just Google a company you love. So like if I go here and just search like Apple's mission, for example. Apple's mission statement is to bring the best user experience to its customers through its innovative hardware, software, and services. So that's like their mission statement, for example. Or you could probably do this with like Google, right? Organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So you can find some examples. This is what Imperium Labs' problem, vision, and mission is. Like the problem that we see, that we want to solve, that we've basically dedicated our lives to solving, is that most high-ticket entrepreneurs struggle to grow their business, right? They want to create better futures for themselves and their families and their clients, but they lack the knowledge and the systems to do so. So that's the problem we see, is that like we've got like entrepreneurs who want to start businesses to make money for themselves and take care of people and, you know, take care of their families and stuff. And they want to help an industry and solve problems, which is the nature of like being a high ticket and coaching and consulting and stuff. And like, but they just struggle. They fall short of the understanding. So our vision is for the industry-wide struggle of high ticket client acquisition to no longer exist. So when we're done, this is what will have happened. Right? When our vision is fulfilled, it will be fulfilled when high ticket client acquisition is no longer a problem. And the mission, build and deliver an unrivaled set of systems that any high ticket entrepreneur can install and use to reliably grow their business and achieve their personal and business goals. So an example of this is this mindset video, right? Like this mindset module is dedicated to be like a system or a series of content that you can install and use and understand to help you grow your business. So that's like the mission, the vision, the problem. And this is why Bo and I work, and this is why we build a team, and this is why we are doing what we're doing. Because like I don't need more money. Like there's no, and that's not to sound like cocky or anything, not at all. But like my point there is, it's like there comes a point where when you're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month with like 70 to 80% profit margins, there's no reason to keep making more money. So you have to find another reason. And the reason I'm putting this module in here, and this training in here, is because even if you don't, like, if you're not facing the problem of comfort right now, you will, because this program will help you achieve your goal, right? And then you'll be comfortable, and then the reason you can't keep growing is because of comfort. So it also helps to think about the long term, right? So like once you've done all the why and stuff, you can go down to here, like, and answer these questions. What are you building for your future family, right? What good can you do with the money you make? What is a huge problem you see in the world and want to solve in the long term? And how does your current company facilitate a potential solution towards this? So like what you might think, like this depends entirely on how you're wired. But for me personally, I want to solve an extremely big problem, right? Now I cannot do like, and the problem I face there is that like high ticket client acquisition is not like a international problem, right? It's localized, it's specific to an industry. However, I want to personally solve a huge problem like reversing climate change. And what I'm doing is I'm using my current businesses as a way of acquiring skills and capital. So when the opportunity presents itself, I can build a huge company dedicated to a global solution of a huge problem like global warming. So my sort of reason for growing this company is twofold. The first is so that I can actually visualize this and bring this and solve this problem because I've experienced this problem and it's bloody horrible. But the second reason is my business at the moment, my businesses, they fit into a longer term vision of me proceed to solve a huge problem that's going to alleviate suffering for hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. Okay, so that's like my why, and that's me being transparent with you. So you can sort of think this through, and that's how you defeat comfort. Pretty deep stuff, okay? And nobody else is talking about this stuff. Everybody else is just focused on, how to sign an extra client. But this is what you need to know. So now that we've talked about that, let's talk about the how, right? So this is goal causality. So by now we've covered the what, right? So we've gone through your goal constants. We've figured out like what you need to have in place, like your niche, your problem, your solution. We've talked about time and time frames and why you shouldn't give up and everything. We've also discussed why you want to achieve your goal. Now it's time to understand how to achieve it. And this is goal causality. So here we're going to cover 3 things, right? Number 1 is reverse engineering the math of your goal. Number 2 is simple planning for clarity. And number 3 is the chain of action. And they're all pretty cool. So now that we've discussed the what, the when, and the why, let's talk about how, right? Probably the sexiest part and the one that's making you sit up the tallest, I suppose. So this is very simple. We're now going to use reverse engineering and planning templates to build a solid, clear idea of what we need to do to make your goal happen. And so we've got a resource here, reverse engineering your goal. You're gonna love this. This is cool. So I've got this resource. This will be available in the download section below. And so what we're going to do now is basically reverse engineer and invert your goal to figure out exactly what you need to do to make it happen. So your goal and your business can be broken down to a series of numbers in like simple forms and first principles. And so what we're going to do now in this document is go through and work through the numbers. And by working through the numbers, we can define a single daily activity and a single daily volume and number to do to actually achieve the goal. And it really is this straightforward. Like this is we talk about causality and cause and effect. This is about as black and white as it gets. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and you can click here to actually make a copy of this Google Doc. If you just go to File, make a copy, and then you can start filling it in for yourself. So what I want you to do here is reverse engineer this goal. So for those of you who aren't familiar with reverse engineering, it's basically where we figure out how to solve a problem by starting with like the end goal and then proceeding to like work our way back through the numbers. So what I want you to do is in this step-by-step form is start by defining your goal below. Now, I want you to state this. In fact, if I just come here a second, I need to actually change this one because I did update this before starting this recording. So let's just come back into here. Okay, so just disregard that. So what we want to do here is we want to start by defining the goal. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do something like contradictory to what I said earlier. Okay, so it might sound stupid, but we want to define how much money you want to make and how many months you want to make it. So I want you to be really pessimistic with this time frame. Now, I have mentioned that I want you to remove the time frame from your mind entirely. Okay, and I still want you to do that. But for the purpose of this exercise, with it, when it comes to cause and effect, it is actually possible to figure out exactly what you need to do over a certain period of time to achieve the goal. However, the caveat to this is we're going to do this, but we're going to completely forget about the time frame. Because what we want to do is we want to get a sort of number per day of activity. Like we're going to define the activity and then define how much volume of that activity we need to do per day to achieve the goal. But to get that number, we need to have some rough time frame, right? But it does not mean that we will achieve the goal in the time frame we set. It just means that the numbers say we will. But it might take longer, it could happen shorter, but we're going to set a time frame, we're going to figure out how much we need to do per day, and then we're not going to have any emotional attachment to the outcome against the time frame over which we've set, okay? So, step one, define goal. State your goal below in dollars and months. So you just, whatever, like, you know what your goal is. We're not going to do it like to monthly, we want to do it over a certain period of time because like it just is a lot easier to like figure it out over 12 months, for example. So I would maybe just do 12 months, like how much money you want to make in the next 12 months, okay? Number two, state the value of a client. So once you've figured this out, you want to state the average value of a client below. So you're just going to put that number in here, figure out the lifetime value of an average client and how much they're worth to you. If you're selling multiple products, well, we're going to talk about that. We probably already have, but we just want to sell one thing or very few amount of things. Just figure out like what one thing you want to sell the most of and pop it in here, okay? So step three, state your sales metrics. So if you don't know your metrics, then I'd suggest you use these ones here, but I want you to put your sales conversion rate, I want you to put your good fit rate and your SHRP rate. So your sales conversion rate is the percentage chance of a call closing if the client's a good fit, right? The good fit rate is the percentage chance of a prospect being a good fit on the call you pitch. And the SHRP rate is the percentage chance of someone actually showing up for a call. So the good fit rate is, you might be unfamiliar with this, but this means like if you book 10 meetings, not all of them are going to be a perfect fit for your program, right? So like one or two of them might have no money at all and they might not be a good fit. Or one of them might like not even be in your industry, right? So we need to account for the good fit rate to get a proper indication as to what we need to do. So like if you don't know these numbers because you're still starting out, then I would suggest you put your sales conversion rate as 15%, your good fit rate as 70 and your show rate as 70 as well. Those are the sort of like baseline metrics that you should be able to achieve with the program. Honestly, you can achieve way more than that, but we're going to be pessimistic, okay? So put those metrics in there. Now, note that the systems can give you obviously a stronger sales conversion rate, a better good fit rate and a good SHRP rate, but you've got to understand that learning and installing these systems takes some time, so it's best to be conservative. The secret to reverse engineering successfully is pessimism, right? Please do not say you have a 50% sales conversion rate if you haven't got like 100 calls of data in black and white to prove it. In fact, like it almost is better to like if you think you can convert it 30%, just say you can convert it like 15, because the more pessimistic you are with these numbers, the better your expectations will be aligned with reality, the less likely you are to get discouraged, the more the universe will favor your ability to actually get the results because, well, you're actually going to keep trying, right? So if you haven't got data, then don't put it. So like for Imperium, we've done like hundreds, if not thousands, well, we've probably done like 1,000 sales calls at this point. And like I can tell you exactly what our sales conversion rate is. I can tell you exactly what our good fit rate is, our show rate. You probably don't have this data. You might be able to guesstimate it, but I would suggest just being really pessimistic or using these ones if you're going to be using systems in the program, okay? Number 4 is state your appointment booking metrics. So list your appointment booking systems below, and if you don't have any yet, just wait till you do the outbound or inbound attraction methods and come back to this. So what you want to do is have the system name and the appointment booking rate. So if you're using Loom Alchemy, we see appointment booking rates here from anywhere from like 2% to like 10% to 15%, sometimes crazy. Same with cold messaging, it could be like 2%, it could be 10%. My suggestion here for appointment booking rate, if you're not sure what it's going to be yet, just be really pessimistic and put 2%. Okay, now you can also do this with ads, you can do this with inbound, you can do it with YouTube videos, but for the sake of this exercise, I'd recommend just using like an outbound attraction system because it's so definable and tangible. So I would just put here 2% as the appointment booking rate because that's like the minimum that you should be able to achieve with Loom Alchemy, for example, or cold messaging, but it could be more like 5% or 10%, but we'll be pessimistic. So please, pessimism, like you by your nature, you might want to be optimistic, but don't be. So step 5 is to reverse engineer the numbers. So what we're doing now is we're actually going to go through and reverse engineer all the numbers, and I've got an example on the next page. So what we do is step 1 is to take the dollar goal and divide it by the client value to get how many clients we need to achieve the dollar goal. Then we take the clients required and divide it by the sales conversion rate to find the good fits required, like how many calls we need to do that are a good fit. Then we do it with good fit calls required divided by good fit rate, which gives us how many sharps we need. Then we go on to sharp rates required or sharps required, and we divide that by sharp rate to get how many bookings we need appointment-wise. We're defining this as bookings, by the way, like the cause and effect is bookings. And then once we know how many bookings we need, we divide this by the appointment booking rate to figure out what outreach volume is required to achieve the bookings. And then what we can do is we can figure out how many days it takes, right? So my point here is we reverse engineer this. So we figure out how many clients we need. Then we figure out how many good fit calls we need to get those clients. Then we figure out how many sharps we need to get those good fit calls. Then we figure out how many bookings we need to get those show ups. Then we figure out how much outreach we need to do to get those bookings. And then what we do is we take the outreach we need to do, like the amount of volume, and we divide it by how many days we have to achieve our goal, and that gives us the daily activity required. And all the metrics should be set as a decimal. So like if you've got a 15% sales conversion rate, it would be clients required divided by 0.15, but I'll give you an example. Okay, so let's hop into an actual example where we can see how this works. So here's an example. Let's say that you want to make $240,000 in 12 months. Okay, well, let's say the client value is $6,000 and the sales conversion rate is 20%. The good fit rate is 80%, the sharp rate is 82.5%, and the appointment booking rate is 2.5%. This could probably be a bit more. But let's do this. So step number 1 is we find how many clients we require. So what we do is we do 240,000 divided by 6,000 to find we need 40. And then what we do is we try and find how many good fit calls we need. So we basically do 40 divided by 0.20 because our sales conversion rate is 20%. And that means we need 200 good fit calls. And then we take 200 and divide it by 0.8 because that's the good fit rate. And that tells us we need 250 shows. We take 250, we divide it by the show rate of 82.5%, which means we need 303 bookings. So we need 303 bookings at an 82.5% show rate, an 80% good fit rate, and a 20% conversion rate on those calls to make this money. Now what we then do is we take our appointment booking rate of 2.5% and we divide 303 by 0.025, which is 2.5% represented as a decimal. And that means that we need 12,120 emails to make this work. So what we do now is we look at how many days. So we're going to do 12 months, right? Which is 365 days. Now we don't want to send cold emails on weekends. So we basically remove 104 days because there's 52 weeks in a year. There's 2 days of the weekend per weekend. Per week. There's 52 weeks, so we do 52 times 2 is 104. So we remove 104 days and we remove Christmas as well because nobody wants to be reached out to on Christmas, or maybe Thanksgiving, whatever. And that leaves us with 247 days to send emails. So what we proceed to do is we divide how many emails we need to send by how many days we have, which then gives us 49, which means that we need to send 49 emails per day. So this means that all you'd have to do is send 49 emails a day. So 49 emails per day will make you $240,000. It's simple, and that's how it works. Okay, so this is how we reverse engineer a goal. And it really puts cause to effect. Like, there is nothing cleaner than this. Because now, like, obviously you need more things. You need like a product, you need a team, you need like some other shit. But for the most part, like, if you want $240,000, you send like 49 emails a day with these metrics. Now, the best thing you can now do is double this number because, like, you know, it might be, we still need to be pessimistic, but I would just increase that number by 25 to 100% to 50%, whatever. Usually just adding like, an extra 25% onto it, or 50% is quite good. But that's basically how it works. So I want you to do this for yourself now. Okay, so what I've done here is, I've mapped this out. So now it's your turn, and please, for the love of God, be pessimistic, right? So you're going to put your desired revenue in here, divide it by how much the client's worth to get your average, how many clients you need. Take that, divide it by your sales conversion rate to figure out how many calls you need, and then like good fit calls at least, and then divide that number by your show rate to figure out, your good fit rate to figure out how many shows you need, and then just keep working back through this model here as I've just mapped out. And what will happen is you'll eventually have a number here, and this is in gold. And the number highlighted in gold is your North Star. Come hell or high water, get it done every damn day. No excuses. And I'd suggest doubling it, or at least adding 25% on, 50% on, to be certain to hit your goal. The worst case scenario is you get there twice as fast, right? This obviously calculates with organic, but you can use the same model for other methods like paid ads or referrals or content. So if you know that, let's say you're doing YouTube as a strategy to get clients, which will be taught in the program. Let's say every video you upload, you book 2 calls. Right, then what you could do is you could deduce how many videos you need to actually produce to produce the amount of calls you need to get the meetings. But this is really how it works, guys. This is as straightforward as it gets. And we can do some further math if we want to. So we need 303 bookings, which means we're conducting 250 calls. 200 of them are a good fit. So we're really doing 200 proper sales calls over the course of the year, and we've got 247 days, which means that we're not even doing a call a day, right? So we don't even need to do a meeting every day. It's probably a meeting every 4 meetings a week to make this happen. So what is that, 0.8 meetings a day or something? But this is the point. The main thing you want to find is this number here, is how many, what volume of activity do you need to perform each day to achieve your goal? If you can figure that out, you can put direct cause to effect, and you can also line up the timeframes. Now, once you've done this, like I said, double or just get this number as high as you can. Don't then just think, oh, I've got to do okay, so I've to achieve 100 grand, I've got to do, I've just got to do 15 emails a day. Well, don't just do 15 emails a day, man. Just do 45, right? 50, 60. Just do as much as you can, but just know that you've got the math lined up, and it will give you. This will just relax you. It will allow you to relax a bit in the chasing of your goal. So that's reverse engineering your goal, and that is basically how we put cause to effect and define exactly what needs to be done to achieve the goal. So now let's build a plan. Okay, planning out a goal is really straightforward for high ticket businesses. So I've actually got a resource for you here, and what we're going to do is we're going to build a little visual form and show you how to do this. So I've got this resource called Simple Planning for Clarity. If you open this up, it will look like this. So pretty simple. The resource is going to help you plan and build a plan around your goal. This is a basic plan. We're not being too intricate. We're just building the sort of top level view of what you want your business to look like. And the secret here is that less is more. The less variables you have, the more simple it will be, the easier it will be to grow and scale. So what I've got here is a series of titles in bold. And what we want to do is we want to just answer these questions. Okay. So this is all you need really to grow your business. In case you're wondering, there's going to be a few things that might not be in here that might be of lesser importance, but the main macro things that you need I've listed out here. So channels. What channels are you going to use to generate appointments for your business? Right? List them out here. You might just have one, you might have multiple. Systems. What macro systems are required to run your business? Right? So by run, I mean automate. So onboarding, support, service delivery, sales might be the main ones. Websites and funnels. What websites and funnels will your business have? You might have a main website and you might have one funnel. You could have a webinar funnel. Products and services. What products or services will you sell with this business? Right? It should just be one thing, but you might have a couple products. Maths. How many units do you need to sell to achieve your goal, and what profit margin are you aiming for? Okay? So you put your unit in here, you should have this from the reverse engineering, I need 40 clients to make $240,000, and that's the maths. If you've got 2 products, you can account for both of them, but just having one's the easiest way to scale a business, or maybe a mastermind or something, but yeah, keep it simple. Team, what team will you need in place to help achieve your goal? Now you can add more people here, but it might just be like you, a VA, an accountant, and someone to help with service delivery or something. Pretty simple. Objectives. What are the core objectives required to achieve your goal? So now what you can do is you can think of the miscellaneous things that you need to have accomplished for you to actually bring your goal straight to fruition. Pretty simple stuff. Like you won't be complicating this too much, but like, for example, like, if one of the things we're doing with Imperium is eventually we want to use YouTube ads to actually get clients and grow and scale. And so we need to basically build a system for YouTube ads, which is something that we've played with before, but we've never truly mastered. So one of our objectives is actually basically to build a system for that. So once you've defined the variables, I'd suggest mapping them out in a tool like Miro or FigJam. Having this to visualize is very helpful. So if you want to see how we've done this for Imperium coaching heading into 2023, you can click here. So right now it's almost April in 2022. And Bo and I have already planned out Imperium for 2023. And this is our plan. So you can actually click here and open up this PDF. And this is basically like exactly what it looks like. Might be a little blurry, so I'm actually going to pull it up here. Okay, let's just load this one up. So this is how we've mapped out our entire business, right? And this is literally it. So what we've got here is we've got the channels, the channels of appointment booking. So we're going to be using organic YouTube and a podcast. We're going to have looms and setters and YouTube ads. Nice and simple. Systems. We need a system for sales. We need a system for onboarding. We need a system for like delivery in terms of actually like delivering like our product to clients. Like how do we do that? What, like, are we using Kajabi? Are we using School? And then support. How do we support clients? Those are the main 4 systems that we need to run this business. And then websites, we'll have a simple website and a simple funnel. And then products, we have the Imperium Systems program, which is what I'm working on right now. If you're watching this video, you might be part of the Imperium Systems program, or you could be part of our earlier version 1 program. And then we've got the Imperium Collective, our second product, which we're going to be working on in 2023. This will be our mastermind that we will cap to probably about 50 people a year. Then we've got our team over here on the right. So we'd need growth manager, 1 and 2, so 2 reps and 2 setters, an operations manager, client success manager, a marketing manager, 2 VAs, an accountant, and then me and Bo, who wouldn't do anything, except from support and coaching. And so like that's our team. That's the infrastructure we need to support this goal. This is the math. So we want to sell our product at $9,600, 360 times, which will bring us around $3.456 million in revenue. Then we want to sell the Imperium Collective, our mastermind, at $2,500. This might increase this price. We're not sure on this yet, but this is like rough estimate. At 50 units a year, which is 1.25 million. Gross revenue is 4.7 million. Then we have 40% expenses because we are going to be running YouTube ads, and we've obviously got a pretty large team over here. So, the thing is that if you want to completely automate your business, you have to sacrifice profit, because the only true way to automate and have something to run itself is to have a team. And so you have to make a decision between profit and your time. And I would rather have time than profit, right? So we'd run a 60% margin, which means our gross profit would be $2.82 million. And then we've got our objectives here. So these are our core objectives. Build version 2 of the program, Imperium Systems, which is what I'm working on now, ready for 2023. Create the Imperium Collective, which is the mastermind. Master YouTube ads, 3 vids a week for the YouTube channel, build the team in blue, and then maintain our profit margins. Those are our objectives. So this is how I've planned out my business. Now, I cannot take credit for this structure because the person I learned this from is Sam Ovens. Some of you might be familiar with him. He actually helped with this and it was really useful. So thank you, Sam. We've been working with Sam for a long time. So yeah, I can't take credit for this system for planning, but I have found that it's like this little document here I produced, but I thought it'd be useful for you. It's been useful for me. So thank you to Sam. But build this out. And then this just gives you like a page of all the variables you need to achieve your goal. And it's a really beautiful way to plan. You'll notice it's very simple. You'll notice there's not many variables, and you truly can build a like $4 to $5 million business a year with these amount of variables. Now, there's going to be some other little bits and pieces, and obviously I'm aware of that, but for the most part, the big things that are the things we should be worrying about and focused on are listed out here. So that's how to plan. Okay, you can use that resource, and that should give you clarity on your goal. So now that we've defined the raw math of your goal alongside a clear-cut plan, let's explore the chain of action. So this is pretty cool. So having a plan and understanding your math is important, but it doesn't really matter if you don't have a clear-cut, step-by-step plan of action that's reverse engineered to the day. So we need to have like a coherent sort of structure on, like, we know what we need to do because we can visualize it. We know what like our daily actions are. We know how much we want to make. We know what our team should look like. We know what systems and channels and products and funnels and objectives. But like, how do we like organize this into a coherent workflow so we know what to work on and when to work on it? Well, understanding your goal means to understand all the causes you need to put into motion to make it happen. So we now know, after you've watched this video, you're one of the lucky few, that goals are cause and effect, right? Like, a goal is not some magical thing that just randomly happens by chance or mystery. It's understanding that like what underpins that goal is a collection of variables that, if lined up together in tandem, will produce the goal. Like, it's kind of just like, I don't know, it's like Tetris. Like, you just like put those little pieces together and then the thing like just builds and then you just have Tetris. I don't know, just around, like, it's like a puzzle. You know, like, want to build the puzzle, you just put the pieces together and then it's there. So we can obviously observe that that's not all there is to it, right? So we've obviously we've defined your North Star, right? This is the big thing, the number of outreaches you need to do per day to make it happen. Like, you know, you could have ads or inbound as well, but we've defined like the real big thing, like that sort of number of messages or emails or videos or posts or ads or ad spend. Like, that's the thing, the big thing. Like, how are we attracting clients to this business every day? What do we need to do every day to achieve those numbers, and how does that work? But we also need to do the following. Right, we need to build channels for appointment booking. We need to build systems for consistency. We need to build websites and funnels. We need to build products or services or improve them. We need to build a team, and we also need to achieve our objectives. In case you're wondering what to prioritize, it's always going to be number 1 and number 4. Right, these are by far the most important things to get right. So, like, the first thing you need is channels for appointment booking, but the second thing you need is products or services to actually sell that are good. These are the first 2 things you should focus on in your chain of action. So your chain of action, by the way, I may not have defined it, but your chain of action is basically like the series of actions you need to take to make your goal happen. To like put all of this together, and like, it's going to take time and work, but now you know exactly what you need to work on. It's just a question of organizing it and prioritizing it so the goal happens quicker, right? But like, the first things you should always be focused on is appointments and services and products. So the first thing to build is the channels for appointment booking. Even if you have nothing to sell, just start generating appointments, right? It might sound crazy and backwards, but what it does is it forces you to start focusing on the thing that really matters, which is making money. And then once you start booking appointments, it lights a fire under your ass to start building something good to actually sell them, because you don't want to waste them. So it's like a sort of pressureful thing that's beneficial. But you know, the most important thing is to get right at product and appointment booking. Because if you've got loads of appointments and you're selling people and you've got a great sales process, but you're selling people a product doesn't work, then they're going to ask for refunds and your reputation will be fucked. And then if you're getting like a poor reputation, loads of refund requests, then, well, you're not going to achieve your goal because you've got negative forces acting against you, right? So resource, chain of action. This is pretty simple. I've sort of laid it out here. Obviously, like, I can't give you like a cut and dry way to do this, but this resource is designed to help you strategize the best chain of action for your goal, like the best series of things you need to do. Like I said, I can't really give you the chain of action because it's dependent on you, but I can give you some frameworks and just the model to sort of sit down and think about it. So step 1 is to organize priorities. Obviously, as I mentioned, your priorities should right now be 2 things. Number 1 is building a system to generate appointments. You know, we've figured out how many you need. And then number 2 is building the best insane product in your service, the best product or service in your niche to solve the problems. So you got to sell the best, right? You have to sell the best thing in your niche. The leading cause, the main thing that contributed to Bo and I getting multi-7 figures with Imperium within a year or 2, or a year and a month, was purely product. It was because we sold, or we still sell, the best thing on the fucking market. In fact, I'd go as far to say that you could take everybody else's course on the market, wrap them up into a bundle, and put it against ours, and ours would still win. That's how much confidence and belief I have in our product. because the thing works incredibly well. And the caveat is that most people in our industry don't have good products. So like, you only have to be better than everybody else, but you want to be amazing, right? So you need to focus on these two things first. And it's really like this thing here. Number two, you have to have a good product. It sounds so elementary and so basic, but if you're not selling something that is unbelievably amazing for the client, you will not get your goal, right? So once you've got appointments and something amazing to sell, and by the way, we'll have modules on this. I'm not just telling you, we'll show you how to do it. But once you have something amazing to sell, you can start to focus on other things. I cannot give you a cut and dry method to plan out the rest of your objectives because everyone's going to be at different points. When planning, I find it helpful to forget about timeframes or be extremely loose with the time I give myself or pessimistic. The purpose of this exercise is to get clarity on what chain of action is required, so you don't need to be hyper-specific with timeframes. So I'm just going to draft up a little plan for this. This is just an example. So let's say there's a business currently doing 10 grand a month. They're selling a 3K product and they want to get to 50 grand a month. I'm just going to sort of talk out how I would do this, right? So what I'd first of all do is seek to increase this product price to around $5,000, right? So I try and figure out how I can charge more money by just improving the product and basically solving a bigger problem, or like having like a stronger sales process. The first thing I do here is just try and go from 3K to 5K because you want to sell high ticket. So what we then do is we know that to get to 50K a month, we need 10 clients. Okay, so my next step of action would be to build a system, probably through cold email or cold messaging, to book, something like 50 appointments a month, or let's say 60 appointments a month, knowing that my show rate will be, 80%, my good fit rate will be 80%, which means I'll be doing around like 40 appointments a month. With a 25% sales conversion rate, I'll be doing 50 grand a month, right? That's just like sort of run through the math like, so I now know I need to generate, let's just call it 70 appointments a month to be pessimistic. Fuck it, let's just say 80 appointments a month to be pessimistic is what we need to generate. So then I would go back and reverse engineer, I'd go through, and so I need 80 appointments, and let's say my appointment booking rate is 3%, then I do 80 times by 0.03. Hang on, what am I doing here? That's 80 appointments a month, isn't it? So let's do this times by 12, so that's 960. So if I want to make, this is okay because it's just by, hang on 1 second. What have I done here? See, this is the thing when you try and do it quickly. It's easy to get confused. So let me just come out here. So let's map this out properly, right? So we want to make 50,000 a month, which means that we need 10 clients. So at a 25% conversion rate, this means, we do divide. That's why I'm being an idiot. It's been a long video. Sorry, guys. So we need to do 40 good fit calls. Okay. So then let's say that we need, our good fit rate is 80%. So we do 40 divided by 80. So we need 50 show ups. And let's say we've got a show up rate of 80%, which you'll have in this program. So then let's do 50 divided by 0.8, which means we need to book 62 appointments. Let's call it 65 to be pessimistic. So which means we need to do, if we do 65 divided by 20, that we need to do 3 appointments roughly per day, right? So that's the first thing I do is I plan out like a system to improve the product to charge more. Then I'd build a system to generate 3 appointments a day. And if I was doing 3 appointments a day, then I know I'd roughly sign 10 clients at 5K to make 50 grand a month. Then what I would proceed to do is once I've got that system in place, I would make sure, well, obviously you need to put the sales system, right? So you can actually convert people at that 25% that we're talking about, or 20%, whatever it is. And then you'd progress through to the next thing, which would then be to look at where most of your time's going. So is your time going towards service delivery, and are you coaching loads of people? Like what sort of problems are people facing going through your product? I'd start to build modules around that. You might want to hire a virtual assistant to take care of the outreach and maybe a sales rep to take care of everything else on the sales side. Then you can purely focus on the products and the coaching. So you sort of see my like chunk. Like I'm not starting by building a website or by building an onboarding process. I'm solving the first problem, which is getting like customers, and then building a product that we can charge more money for. And then I'm figuring out how to sell that to people. And then I'm figuring out how to improve the product based on their feedback. And then I'm starting to build a team like around the biggest problems, around what's taking most of my time. And then I'm stepping back. And then, do you see my point? So this is just a real sort of basic plan. But what you want to do is you want to spend the next couple of hours with a paper and pen thinking through your chain of action. So by chain of action, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like it's almost like you're like, you know, when they in chess, when they say they're thinking like 10 moves ahead, that's what you want to do. Now you also have to understand that your chain of action will never ever be linear and perfect, because there's variables that are going to fly at you that will make it impossible for you to perfectly follow it. But all we're looking for here is a loose structure for the next 12 months to follow, of actions that we need to take. Like it's like a macro to-do list of big projects that we need to work on, or big hires we need to make at certain points. So if you know that, like, you know, if you know you need loads of appointments and you haven't got enough availability to do the appointments, then you need a rep. Right? So you have to hire a rep at some point, and you work through these things, and you have to strategize and think through, like visualize your goal, work your way back, think of all the things you need to have the goal contributing, and everything needs to be in place, and then figure out in which order you need to build them based on the priority of what has the most impact on the goal. That's how we do it. Every hire, every system, every objective, write them all down and organize them properly. So you need to sort of anticipate, like once you start signing, like a bunch of clients, you're going to need to have a client success manager. So maybe you have a threshold in mind. Like once I hit, like, you know, 20 clients a month, I need to have someone handle support, because I can't handle support. Like I've got 5 clients at the moment. I could probably handle 4 times the amount of support tickets before I started to break down. So that means that around 20 is when I need to hire someone else to handle the new clients. So you have to just sit and think and just strategize out the plan. And you do this, in case you're wondering, by looking at your plan that you've mapped out. This is why we visualize it. And we just look at like what needs to be built first, what hires need to be made and when they need to be made, what objectives need to be done first, like what's going to drive appointments, what's going to drive client success, and which is always the product. When do I need a website? Like, do I need the funnel immediately? When do I need to build a support system? When does delivery become too much? You just have to sort of like fit all these variables into a nice little pattern. So there's a few notes here. I've actually capitalized these. I would not just pretend I'm shouting. Do not prioritize around pain avoidance. This is the biggest mistake people make. If something's going to be a bitch to do not put it off or procrastinate on it. So what you'll probably want to do, your natural pain avoidance brain, the first thing you'll want to do is go and work on your website and start really just getting some stuff done on your product, and then maybe doing some stuff like just like, you know, a little bit of accounting, or like you start looking for a VA when you don't need one, or you'll start thinking about, like, you just need to like sink your teeth straight into the difficult stuff. The stuff that you will try to avoid is the stuff you need to do the most. So if you're wondering what you should do, look at what you're procrastinating on the hardest, and that's usually what it is, right? So here's a few notes. Anyone that builds a new website first is going to fail. So fun fact, we don't even have a website for Imperium. We might do when you're watching this video, but like right now, we don't even have a website. We've got a funnel, and even then it's not really like a proper funnel. If you build a system for onboarding before an appointment booking system, you will fail, right? If you hire a sales rep without having a successful sales system in place, you'll fail. Like we don't have a website. So like all of this stuff, like you just have to really think through like what needs to be done, when does it need to be done? The most important thing right now is getting clients and keeping them really happy. So that's building the channels first, then building the products, right? Build a channel, automate it, get the calls, then work on the product, right? You should be able to do both. It's possible, trust me. Once you've done that, right, once the product's at a point where it's really good, you can start putting fuel on the fire, maybe hiring a sales rep, and then you can start looking at building other systems. And like, you know, you've got it all in your head, so you want to start building systems, and then maybe it's time to start working on one of these objectives. You just have to, I can't give you like the actual, like, you know, playbook for this, because it's going to be down to you, and like, you know, you have to sort of, you know, your situation better than I do. However, it's a useful thing to do. Just sit down and just write it out. And like Bo and I have this, like, I'm not going to reveal it because it's kind of like personal shit for the business, but like we've literally just got like there's like 20 steps of like step by step what we need to do over the next year to actually build this thing. And like we've also got it for the product. So like I'm not going to click on this, but we've got a Trello board here called 2022 end product. And this shows like exactly what we need it to look like and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's the how, right? So that's how we achieve our goal. That's the how. We've covered like all of these things. We've gone through reverse engineering. We've gone through the plan, and now you should have a chain of action. So you need to pause the video, and obviously you haven't done it in the last like 2 minutes, but you should now know like what you need to do daily to achieve the sales volume you need. Then you should also have a plan as to like all the variables you need to put together to actually achieve the goal. And you should also now have like all of those variables mapped out in the order of building them. And you should have clarity. The purpose of this is clarity. You should also understand why you're doing this, right? What all the pain is for and why you're trying to achieve the goal. You should also understand like the principles of time that we've laid out, the Stockdale paradox and like, you know, the when and everything. And you should also understand like the goal constants and like what your goal constants are and what you're working within. So now let's talk about the actual, the where, right? Because the where is really, really fucking important. This is the environment in which you will be doing this work in. So in order to have this work, we need to do work, right? And we're going to be working somewhere. So we need to make sure that that somewhere is optimized towards us doing the work, right? And we're going to talk about environmental encouragement here. This is something that's massively overlooked. It's probably one of the most important predictors of your behavior. So let's talk about environment. So like I just mentioned, your environment is a stronger predictor of behavior than anything else. Show me someone's environment and I will show you their future. So why do we focus on environment? Well, your environment, like your office or your home or the people that you live around or the people you interact with, your phone, your laptop, everything you come into contact with, everything, every physical object, every app, every notification, every human, every shop, everything you come into contact with either supports your acquisition of your goal or hinders your acquisition of your goal. Or sometimes it's neutral. So like a stick of deodorant probably isn't going to have much of an impact. Well, you might want to smell good when you're working, but you get my point. Like most things are either good for you or bad for you, or sort of they don't really matter. But a good environment helps by providing immediate access to things that help and limiting access to things that don't help, right? So once again, I have to give credit where it's due for this. My mentor, Sam Evans, is very imperative in my understanding of environment. So this is heavily inspired by his work. So just credit where it's due. But I can walk you through this and it's the same sort of thing. So pretty much all your behavior is the byproduct of what is available around you. So let's take an example. How often you drink water, how much water you drink on a day will depend on how much water is available around you, right? So for example, right now, you probably hear that through the mic. It's probably not the most flattering sound, but I've got a bottle of water on my desk. It's like a 2.2 litre bottle of water. It's pretty much always full. And what it means is I stay very hydrated, right? The difference between someone that drinks a lot of water and someone that doesn't drink a lot of water is purely down to how close their water bottle is to them. The difference between, like another example, how often you check your phone depends entirely on where your phone is, right? Like how often you play video games depends on how available video games are to you. How often you eat bad food depends on how available the bad food is. How often you go to the gym depends on how far away the gym is or like how available equipment is, right? Or, you know, how much access your personal trainer has to you. Like your environment is the biggest predictor of your behavior. And all of your behavior is, like I said, the byproduct of what's available. So for example, if you leave a chocolate muffin on your desk all day, every day, you're going to eat it, right? Or you'll be very tempted to. You might not, but it's very likely, right? We got to think about this not in terms of absolutes, but in terms of like a dichotomy of probability. So the chances of you behaving poorly if you have a chocolate muffin on your desk are increased, right? You might not absolutely eat the muffin every time. However, the chances of you doing it are decreased. And like we want statistics to be working in our favor, not against us. It's like the same if you're working with Facebook open, you're going to get distracted. So what you'll probably notice here is like, this is my environment right now. Like obviously I'm sat at my desk, but this is my laptop and my digital environment, which is what I'm working in. And this is like the screen that I'm sort of engrossed in right now. And you'll notice it's optimized. There's no distractions. The only thing that would piss me off is the fact that my trash has got those resources in it, right, that I've deleted now. But like, you know, this is my environment. There's no distractions. There's no noise. It's calm. It's collected. It's minimal. It's pretty. And like when I'm working, I want my environment to look like this, my screen to look like this, because it's conducive to work. So we have the ability to control our environment. And since our environment controls our behavior, by controlling our environment, we actually get massive benefits without even having to try to behave better. And our environment kind of just encourages us to do the right thing. Okay? So like if you find it really hard to work and really hard to behave properly and do what you need to do, then changing your environment is like the best thing you can do. Like if you're like, I can't tell you enough, like if you're trying to quit smoking, but there are cigarettes around, you're going to smoke, right? You're not that, your willpower is only so useful, right? And at the end of the day, your life is the sum of all the choices you make. So that's a pretty interesting thing, food for thought. Like, you are the sum of every decision you've ever made. So the choices you make and the decisions you make will depend on what is the most available to you in your immediate environment. So often, if you want to fix bad behavior, just fix the bad environment, right? This is exactly why I don't buy bad food, and this is why I work with my phone off out of the room, logged out of all social medias. So here's another example, right? If I go to Facebook over here, I'm not even logged in, right? Not only is Facebook not open, but I'm not even like, I haven't even got the little, like, if I log into Facebook here, right, you'll see this as well. If I go into Facebook, I've only got my 2 business groups. I've got no news feed, right? I've got no marketplace. I've got no stories. I've got no nothing, right? Like, I use undistracted to get rid of basically everything, right? Same for LinkedIn, right? I usually have this hidden. And then, like, I'm not even logged in. So I log out, I'm not logged in, and I'm also not even here. Like, it's the same if I go to LinkedIn, for example. Not logged in. Because if you're logged into these platforms, like, part of your cognitive energy is dedicated to them, right? So, and it's just it's like your environment, like in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm logged into Facebook, I should check it, right? So it's just stupid. So log out. So we want to design our environment for encouragement, which means that basically our environment encourages good behavior. So what I want you to do now is, this is just a real quick 7-step process to auditing your environment and just improving it. So look at everything in your immediate environment and perform an audit. So look at your living and working space and make a list of everything in it, right? So let me give you a quick example. I did this recently. Obviously, this includes everything like your bathroom, kitchen, office, bedroom, your gym, your technology, your furniture, the people. I did this recently with my gym. So I go to a gym, and in the changing rooms at the gym, I exercise basically, and then I go and I sit in the sauna, and then I have a cold shower, and then I leave. However, in the changing room at the gym is a television that plays the news every morning. And that really pisses me off because I hate the news. All it does is make you worry, and the news doesn't contribute to my mission or my goal, so I don't want to see it, right? That's as seriously as I take this thing. So every time I walk into the changing room, regardless of who's in there, I turn the TV off whilst I get changed, right? And then, like, because there's like a little button on the side, and I just literally walk up to it, and I'm just like, boop, and then just turn it off. And then it's gone, and then I can change in peace, right? Without having like part of my attention drawn towards Will Smith smacking Chris Rock, which is something that came up in the news recently. I don't want to know about that. I don't care what happens at the Oscars. All I care about is helping high ticket coaches with client acquisition. So like, now I'm talking about it, and it's even like, you'll notice how that happens. Like, now the news is even interfering with my ability to produce my content for my program because I'm fucking talking about it, right? So it's like, the way in which it affects you is unsurmountable, like all of these negative things. So I just turn the news off when I get changed. It's just a little story. But I audited that. I was like, what's in the changing room? And I was like, well, I got my clothes. There's people. I can't help the people. I got the locker. Oh, the TV. Oh yeah, that plays the news, isn't it? We need to get rid of that. So, it's the same with your car. If you have driving your car, you've got your radio on, you're going to hear shit you don't need to hear, right? It's just going to make you worry. So, number 2, look at your goal and the chain of action required to achieve it. And then number 3, which says number 4, sorry about that. Categorize the items in your environment and list them as negative or positive, and score all items on a scale of -10 or +10. Next, eliminate all negative items from your environment. If you can, distance them from yourself or hide them away. So, if you've got something in your environment immediately that does not contribute to your goal, in fact, if it does the opposite and takes you away from your goal, get rid of it. If you've got a TV in your room or your office, get rid of it. If you've got alcohol in your office or your living room, get rid of it. If you've got a PlayStation, like just sat somewhere, get rid of it. Like, if you've got Instagram on your phone, get rid of it. If you've got Netflix, get rid of it. If you've got Amazon Video, get rid of it. You have to understand that if you're not willing to sacrifice these things, your goal becomes the sacrifice, right? So, there are instances where like you might want to stay a little human and keep something that keeps you happy. I haven't got rid of everything that is negative because like I like playing video games with friends on the odd occasion. I don't use any social media anymore, but like there's a few exceptions to this. But generally speaking, the more extreme you take this, like when I was building my businesses, like in my real monk mode stage, like those first couple of years, I just got rid of fucking everything. I just locked myself in a room. I played no video games. I ate no bad food. I slept perfectly. I went to the gym. I was just perfectly disciplined. And that was because my environment was so clean and I made a lot of money. So number four, really. Eliminate all negative items. Oh, we've covered that. Number 6, increase the availability of positive items in your environment. Make them more noticeable and add visual or auditory cues that nudge you in the right direction. So an example of this is like, look at things and find things that you like looking at that are nice, that help you with your work. So here's a prime example. On my desk, you can probably hear this, right? Through the mic. That, my friends, is a mechanical keyboard, right? And basically, it's a very satisfying thing to type on. And what I realized with a mechanical keyboard, by the way, in case you're wondering what I use, I think the brand is Royal Clutch. But like, what I realized with a mechanical keyboard is it's really satisfying to type on. And a lot of my work is typing. So by having something satisfying, I was making work more satisfying. So like, that's an example. Like, I noticed that like my keyboard was like nice, and I usually would just use my MacBook keypad. So I brought the keyboard in, and now I like working more because it's just a little marginal thing, but you do that with enough things and it's great. And like another thing I really like is music when I work. So I bought a Bang & Olufsen speaker for like $600-$700, which means that I can have really good quality music playing when I work. And it just encourages me to sit down at my desk. It's sort of like plugged in to my desk, so like I can't really move it, which means to listen to music I have to sit down at my desk. So it's pretty cool. But like, just notice the things that are positive and just bring them closer to you and make them more available. And then number 7 is to introduce new positives and keep removing negatives. What else can you bring into your environment to test? So like, one thing that I keep in my office is a resistance band. So sometimes like, and a foam roller. So like, if I'm sat down all day, like I'll just sort of maybe foam roll or just do a bit of stretching with a resistance band between like recordings or something, or sales calls, just so that I feel more refreshed and my body feels more available to work. Just find things you can introduce, like incense is another good one. Like, smell is a great sort of like predictor of work. Like, you can associate smells with work, and it's just really helpful. So yeah, just find things that help you work and introduce them. Like maybe you've got like a really like funny coffee mug, and just keep it on your desk, and then you fill it up and it makes you happy. I don't know, anything, like could be anything, but you want to find things. Like, for example, I've got a standing desk. And like, I'm not stood at it right now, but sometimes I'll stand up to work because I don't want to sit down. Like, you should give your body the option to stand or sit. Like, because sometimes your body won't want to sit because it will be sore, and like, if you sit for too long, you'll get a bit painful. But if you stand for too long, it will also want to sit down. So you have to give it like the option to have both. So just find the positive things, bring them close to you, and remove the negative things. The main thing to do is find the negative things and remove them. There's probably like 1 or 2 big things you should remove. Just get rid of them, okay? And so now I'm going to walk you through a resource, which is basically high performance environments. And this is the last resource in this video, and this will walk you through a checklist for things that you can have to basically improve your environment for better performance. So let's take a look at high performance environments. And this is basically a checklist of like all of the things, all the variables. Once again, big credit to my mentor for this, so I can't really take personal credit for this, unlike the other stuff, but this is really important, so I wanted to share it with you. So this resource basically contains a list of things that contribute to environments of high performers. Okay, so what we've got here is a list for your office or your living space, and a list for the technology that you use. So we'll start with the office, okay? So the first thing is clean, right? You want your space to be clean. Clean spaces contribute to better mental health and encourage healthier choices. Organize. Keep things tidy and orderly. You want to find what you want when you want it. You want to move quickly. Colorful, right? Clinical white environments or dark environments cause anxiety and depression, so just get some damn color, into your office. This is the same with like artwork and stuff. Like, just get some artwork in the thing, just make it pretty, right? You want to create your work environment to be a place that you want to enter, right? This is why like I chose the flat I chose, and the place that I'm in right now is because it's so beautiful, and like my workspace is so like nice, and it's just beautiful to sit here. Like, I'm sort of sitting here now, I've got these huge like 3-meter tall glass windows. I'm looking out onto some beautiful houses. I've got loads of natural light. I've got artwork. It's comfortable. It's warm. Like, you just want to create like an environment that invites you to basically enter it, because then you're more likely to work. Like, you want your office to be a place you want to go and chill out in. Not chill out in, but if I go to my office and I sit down at my desk, I'm probably going to work, right? Natural light, right? Work near windows. Light is energy, and the more the better. other light. So you want to avoid fluorescent white light. I don't know if you've ever been in like a dental office before, or like a supermarket late at night, and like, it's like your nervous system's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you really want incandescent light. 3 sources is optimal alongside the natural light as well. You just want your like lighting. You don't want harsh lighting. Like, just gentle sort of like lights will keep your nervous system clean and focused. Sound. You want to just work in silence or use binaural beats or music. I work with a lot of music. Avoid working near loud noises as they distract. So like, if your neighbour's got a dog, then and it keeps barking, then just go and tell them to shut it up. Like, look, I'm trying to work. I'm trying to save the world here. Like, I can't do that with, fucking Rufus like yapping about. Like, tell him to shut up. I mean, obviously within reason. Please don't start arguing with your neighbours. But like, my point is that like, if you're working near a construction site, like, go and work somewhere else, because you're never going to be able to focus or produce meaningful work when there's like, people drilling hammers and, nails and shit into walls. Furniture. Invest in furniture that doesn't piss you off. It should also be comfy. We've all got a piece of furniture that we hate, right? Now, we might not all, but we all have seen a piece of furniture we hate. So just, you want to make sure the furniture that you surround yourself with is comfortable, inviting, and it's nice. Like, I used to keep, when I move offices again, which I'm doing in September, I'll have a sofa in there. I used to have a sofa in my old office, and what it would mean is I could just sort of lie down and work. If I wanted to just chill out, then I had the option to stand or sit or lay down. Now, that doesn't work for everybody. Some people would just lie on there and watch Netflix, but I didn't do that, so it's fine. Plants, right? Nature inspires and is good for mental health. Get plants into your office, not those fake ones because they're horrible. Get like proper plants, take care of them, keep the room green. I've got one, kind of looking at it now, it's lovely. Temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Thank you, Goldilocks, right? So this is really basic stuff, right? But I can't tell you how much of a difference that like having like a good room temperature will make to your productivity in your business. Like, if you're trying to work in like a sauna or a freezer, it's not going to work. So view, big brighter windows with nice views with things you like. Air, open a window, right? Get some fresh air in your workspace because clean air is better. Smell, remove bad smells and try something like incense or sage. Acoustics, get rugs and stuff to put on the walls, right? Harsh acoustics upset the nervous system. So when you like walk into like an empty room and you clap and it sounds like you've just like shot a gun into your ear, like that's the same thing. Just you want nice like softer sounds. Minimal, apply minimalism to every aspect of your life, virtual and physical. Water, keep water within arm's reach and stay hydrated. And food, stop buying what you know is bad for you. Shop on a full stomach. So like the best strategy for not eating bad food is just not buying bad food, right? And if you don't control what you buy, then grow up, right? However, like shop on a full stomach. So like if I go to shops, which I don't really do anyway because I just get deliveries because shopping's inefficient and I get meal delivery anyway. But if I ever go there, like I'll make sure that I've eaten something before or I drunk loads of water so my stomach's full and I'm not like, because you're more likely to buy bad food on an empty stomach because like that's what your brain knows to do, so just don't do it. So this is going to get a bit ranty because I feel quite passionately about some of this stuff, this technology stuff. So list for technology. So Mac, first of all, I'd suggest getting a Mac. It's faster and better than Windows. I don't know why anyone would have Windows over Mac. Like Macs are faster, they're cleaner, they're more efficient, they're more user-friendly in my opinion. So that's that. Now, one computer, right? One screen, one device, no need for multiple, ideally a laptop. So I would suggest you have a phone and a laptop. And then you get a monitor and you plug your computer into your monitor, which is what I've done right now and what I'm recording this video on. You do not need, like, I don't understand those, like, big, chunky, blocky computers. You can't put them in a bag. You can't take them anywhere. It's just another thing to manage and pay for and worry about. And when you can just literally have a laptop that you can plug into a screen and it works it actually works better, right? So if you've got one of those, like, you don't have to, it's not like a critical requirement, but like in the long term, understand that like the best thing to do is just have a laptop. Like buy a laptop and then invest in the best spec possible. And then just have like an Ethernet cable plugged into the laptop. Like if you've got the new MacBook, you can get like little extenders for USB ports and stuff. HDMI cable into the back of a really good monitor. Like I have a little curved one. It's lovely. It's like a huge one. And then, you just plug it in. You just use it, right? I don't understand people that like have these massive computers because then they gather dust and then like something inevitably stops working, and then they have to run Windows, and you've got to worry about viruses, and then you've got a laptop as well. Like, just one thing, just have one damn thing, right? Now, this is the thing that really pisses me off, is tablets. iPads are fucking stupid, and no serious business owner should have one, right? Nobody runs a serious operation on a fucking iPad, right? I don't understand the iPad thing. You've got your phone because you can't put your laptop in your pocket. I understand. That's why you can't do that. You've got to make calls. You've got to communicate with people on the go. You've got your laptop because, well, you can't do anything meaningful on a phone. But I don't understand the fucking iPad thing in the middle. Stupid thing. Right? You don't need one. So mouse. A mouse is scientifically proven to be faster than the trackpad. Trackpads suck and hurt your hands. If I try to produce like videos like this with like 187 slides on a trackpad, I'd probably get carpal tunnel, or my fingers would just fall apart. So get a mouse, and it's also faster. Like, they've actually done studies to show it's faster. And then also nothing. Remove all crap. You don't need anything fancy. So by crap, I mean like all of these like extra little plugins and extensions and like random things and like all sorts of crap that you just don't need, that people put on the desks that they don't need. Like, if you have like a live, laugh, love sign on your desk, then you're asking for someone to make a joke, right? Like, it's just crap, it's tat. I mean, it might mean something to you, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not judging you for having a live, laugh, love sign, but like, a lot of people just have crap in their environment on their desks for no reason. It adds no value. Like, there's just some random like cable that just been sitting there for like, 2 weeks. Or maybe there's like a webcam that's like half broken that you've been meaning to fix. It's just sitting there. Like, just get rid of it, man. You don't need anything fancy, right? Ethernet. So slower internet is slower business. Get hooked up. Use an Ethernet cable, right? It makes you a lot faster. One thing at a time. Do one damn thing at a time and do not multitask. This is a big one, right? Just do one thing at a time, right? The biggest indication as to how much money someone has is how many bloody tabs they have open as well, right? It's down here. But how many apps they have, how many things they try and do at one time, how many tabs they have open, it really is a good indicator. Like, if I'm talking to someone, right, and I'm like helping them, and then like they open their browser and they've got like 100 tabs open, and then they minimize those tabs, and then like it takes like 5 seconds to fucking minimize them because it's so much. But then also what happens is you look at their desktop and they've got like 5 things open, and then they've also got like their phone on the, like, Christ, you cannot do anything meaningful with that amount of crap. So do one thing at a time, have minimal apps, right? Just delete every app that doesn't contribute to your goal as a rule of thumb, and then have one tab open at a time, right? People who work with more than 2 or 3 tabs open are poor, right? God forbid you have 2 browsers. So it's like, if you've got like this, and then you've got like all these tabs open, and you've got to move between browsers, like, sure, if you're like media buying or like building something that requires more tabs, that's fine. But it's when you've got like just do a task, finish the task, close it, do the next task. Don't do a task, like let's say you set up a Zap, right? So you've got 2 softwares open and Zapier, and then you need to look up a tutorial. So you also look up a tutorial, and that tutorial takes you to a YouTube video. So you've now got 5 tabs open to build one fucking Zap. And then let's say you build the Zap, but then you don't close the tabs. No, you just move to another tab, and then you do the next thing. And then by the time the end of the day rolls around, you've got it's just, oh my God, it's chaos. Like, just do one thing at a time, right? So for example, like if I hop in here and I'm on Chrome, I hop in, I go to Facebook, I log in, right? If I'm doing support, I have one tab open, which is Facebook, and then I'll probably have Messenger open as well. I'll go through my notifications. I'll log out of Facebook like this, click off, and then in the same tab, I go to Messenger, right? And then it's, shit, I'm not even logged into Messenger. Let's just go back in here. Then I'll go to Messenger, right? And I'll log into Messenger, and then I will basically like do my work, and then I'll like click off the tab, and then maybe I've got to do something in Stripe, so I'll open Stripe, and then maybe I've got to do something in Notion, so I'll close that tab and do Notion. Just one thing at a time, okay? Available, have everything you need within arm's reach. So if you need to like have a pen and paper on your desk, right? Phone away. This is a big one. If you work with your phone near you, you will be poor, right? Simple. By having your phone near you, you are just telling the world to distract you. God forbid you have apps on there that distract you. God forbid you have notifications on, right? If you're sitting there, like right now, you might be guilty of this. You've probably got more than one tab open, and you've probably got your phone on your desk or somewhere near you with fucking Snapchat sending you people typing, right? It's just asking. You're just, when you do that, it's just stupid. Please get rid of it for your sake. It's not good for you and it's making you poor, right? Phone away. I used to lock my phone in my car. I don't do it anymore because I don't have anything on my phone, right? So, I just lock my phone like in a drawer in my kitchen now, but I don't use it. No email. Do not check your email or have it pushed to you or your phone, you psychotic freak, right? These, by the way, I'm not intending to insult anyone. I'm just saying, like, why the hell would you have your email open when you work? Like, sure, check it in the morning, check it in the evening, or check it once a day, or something like that. Same with Slack. Check it a couple times a day if you've got a team. But you don't need it in the background whilst you're doing something important. Nothing is that important. Like, the most important thing in business is focus. You don't need to be constantly available all the time to your team or to your clients. Because if you really want to be responsible and help your team and your clients, you will focus on things and building things that contribute towards them. And if they have to wait a couple hours or half a day to get a response from you for that, then it's a fucking happy trade-off in my perspective. No socials. Log out of all social medias. In fact, log the fuck out of all your social medias and stay out. Only go on for work. In fact, delete them. Delete your accounts if you don't use them for work. Notifications, turn it all off. Everything off. Calendar notifications off. Email notifications off. Everything. Get rid of all of it. All of it. Clean desktop. Clean up your desktop and make it minimal. Right? Like this. Passwords. Use LastPass to keep a log of all important passwords and private notes. And then also for tech, you can model this sort of setup. So I have all of my important apps that I use for a day-to-day basis here. I have my most important spreadsheets all available. I've got all my Trello boards here. I've got all of my sales stuff I could need here for my team. I've got all of my organic metrics and prospects that I could need to keep a log of here. I've got all of my team folders here. I've got my program folder here. I've got my YouTube stuff here. I've got any personal stuff I need here. I've got my outreach systems here. And I've got my mindset module I'm working on here. And then I've got other bookmarks. I have undistracted to get rid of all distractions. And then I also use momentum to have this nice bit of nature. And that's pretty much it as far as this goes. I also use AdBlock. And these are the other apps I use. These are cool ones. But yeah, so that's how I have it set up. I use Google Chrome. Anyone who uses like Firefox or Safari, like, what the hell are you doing? Chrome is much better. It's cleaner, it's faster. Like, and this isn't just like my opinion. Like, this is just like, I'm not telling you this stuff because I'm trying to insult you. I'm telling you because, like, if you're doing this stuff, you've got a problem and you need someone to just like coldly say, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why have you got it? So yeah, rant over, basically. Slightly unprofessional, I know, but you know, if it gets the message across, then I don't care. So understand you probably you probably won't have or be able to have all of the things immediately. So for example, like, I don't want you to like think that you need everything here. So like, for example, like, you know, if there's not like a window in your office, it doesn't mean you're not going to make money. If you haven't got a nice view, it doesn't mean you're not going to make money. If your office is a bit too warm, it doesn't mean you're not going to make money. If you don't have any plants, it doesn't mean you're not going to make any money. If you don't drink loads of water, it doesn't mean you're going to make money. Like, these points here make it easier, but it didn't make it impossible. So here's a funny example, right? You don't need everything to succeed, they just help. I could still grow a business locked in a cold cave with 1 megabyte per second of internet connection in a bright pink lighting, wearing the itchiest socks in the world, right? That might be a funny visual for you. I wouldn't have much fun and it would be harder, but I could still grow a business in those conditions, right? Like, it would suck. But my point here is, like, just because like I've listed out these are the things that you need, like, my point is they help you and they will contribute positively to you getting your goal. You can grow a business with distractions. You can grow a business with more tabs, right? You can grow a business with iPads. You can use like Windows. It's fine. My business partner does, right? My point here is these are just things to make you more efficient, and the more of them you have, the bigger your advantage. And in business, we value advantage and want to get it from everywhere. So that is the where, right? Environmental encouragement. Put together an environment and, you know, control your environment so that it contributes towards positive behavior that drives your goal. You know what you need to do, and go and do it. So the next module is who, which is personal capability, and this will be covered in the next video. This is another huge piece of the puzzle, but I thought for the sake of keeping these videos, this has probably been quite a long one at this point, but I thought it'd be best just to do this in the next video. So we will be covering the who as we progress through to the identity video following this one. So that's everything for today's video, guys. That's the model. We've covered the hidden six. We've talked about the what, the why, the when, the why, the how, the where, and we're going to talk about the who in the next video. So that's everything. I hope you found this one useful. It's taken me a long time to produce this and articulate it. However, you've got all these resources and all this knowledge, and this, what I'm hoping is a paradigm shift to help you achieve goals into the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for watching.